Hey, welcome to the Game Informer Show, a weekly podcast covering the video game industry. Join us each and every Thursday as we engage in discussion about the latest gaming news, reviews, and exclusive reveals alongside Game Informer staff and special guests from around the industry. I am your host, Marcus Stewart. I am joined by Mr. Rogers himself, Kyle Hilliard.
Is that a sweater? Are you calling out my sweater with that?
Yeah, for audio listeners, Kyle is wearing a red sweater, which everyone thinks of Mr. Rogers when you see a red sweater, right?
They think of cardigans, I think. Right?
Is there a difference between a cardigan and a sweater?
Yes.
A big difference.
Absolutely.
You're going to really upset
is this the Floridian
cardigan?
talking to me of like, I don't know, it's a sweater, right?
Yeah, you guys it's never cold enough for you to put on a warm, t-shirts only. It's either nothing or t-shirts for you guys.
Wait,
but no. Sweater, like, goes over your head. Cardigan is like a jacket that you put on.
Oh, man.
It's like sweater material, but
yeah,
you put it over you like a zip-up jacket, but it doesn't have a zipper. It has a couple buttons typically.
But it's not a hoodie.
Kind of like a deep V typically, too.
Although I would like to see Mr. Rogers put on a hoodie, Pretty good.
It would look so cool if he had put on a hoodie in that clip with him putting on the clown mask to really complete it.
Yeah.
That other voice you're hearing is Wesley LeBlanc. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. It's been a minute since I've been here. I'm excited to be back.
Yeah. Good to see you. I like your glasses. Got a whole
Thank
Harry
you.
Potter thing going on there.
Just a red sweater, Mr. Rogers, glasses, Harry Potter.
Just assigning you guys characters.
I just you're defining these like characters like based on like one element of them. Like, oh, Harry Potter wears glasses, so of course it's glasses, and Mr. Rogers puts on sweaters, so of course it's sweaters.
Yeah, you know that scene in X-Men when Logan's making fun of all their code names and he looks at Charles Xavier and he's like, "Oh, what do they call you? Wheels?" Like that.
It's that. Yeah.
Also, I guess I'm the only one with no glasses, so I'm the minority here because I'm lame. I'm not cool enough for them.
Loser.
Wait, you wear contacts, or you're just you got 20/20?
I wear contacts.
Oh, okay.
So I do have a pair of glasses, but I only wear them when it's like time for bed because I took them out. I've worn them on the show before, but it's rare.
Contacts are hard for
Typical
me.
Dallas Cowboys fan.
See, I was afraid this was going to come up. So like, you're right. So right now I'm between like homes, let's say, before I move up to Minneapolis, which is a plan of mine, by the way, for the listeners. Obviously, you guys know this.
Yeah, that's cool.
Pack
some cardigans.
I'll finally learn the difference, I guess. I'm in my parents' house in the meantime. And my mom's a big Dallas Cowboys fan, and currently my work office is like her crafting room, which is why if you're watching the video version, there's a bunch of stuff around me. And yeah, there's like at least 3 or 4 like Dallas Cowboys symbols. Like if you want to play I Spy, I'm sure you can maybe spot some more, which has been the bane of my existence because like I bought the car that I have now. I actually bought off my mom years ago. And before I bought it, she had it like Dallas Cowboys themed, like stuff, stickers and stuff. So I had to take all that off, but I didn't do it initially because I was lazy. So I would drive places, and then people would see that, and then one of two things would happen where they would get excited, like, "Oh my God, another Dallas Cowboys fan!" And they would try to talk to me about the Cowboys, and then I would have to pretend to know because it was too much work to explain, like, "Well, no, this isn't mine," and da-da-da. So I would just go like, "Yeah," like just like as long as the conversation was vague enough to where I could fake my way through it, like, "Yeah, good game, they did it," or they would get upset because they didn't like the Cowboys, so I'd be confronted, and they'd be like, "Oh, okay. You like the Cowboys, huh?" And it's like, well, no, I don't. I just... It's like, do I want to explain this? And are they going to believe it? They're like, am I about to get into a fight over this? Like, what is... Football fans are insane. I don't know.
I mean, right? It is kind of an odd fandom to claim living in Florida, right?
Yeah, we have
it's America's
teams. That's fair. Yeah, it is America's team. But we do have 3 football teams here, I think. Dolphins, Buccaneers, Jaguars. That's it,
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we rotate those because they're never all 3 good at the same time, from my knowledge.
Yeah.
It's like one catches fire, and then the other 2 are like okay or bad, right? Like the Buccaneers were the last time when Tom Brady was down here in Tampa. That's when it was like, oh, okay, they're hot right now. So Dolphins and Jaguars are bad. I don't know what the state is now. Like, has the Dolphins is it their turn now to be the good team in Florida, or is it still the Bucks?
No, I think it's nobody's turn. The Dolphins were doing good, I think, but somebody got injured. And then Jaguars, never really good, but we do create a good meme about Waffle House every now and then. And I think that's important for football teams to do.
Hey, you know what? Jacksonville Jaguars, owned by the owner of All Elite Wrestling, Tony Khan. So they got that going.
Oh, really?
Everybody knows that.
He owned the Jaguars and then started AEW. So he still owns the Jaguars, but
is Tony like his name that he goes by in the wrestling world? Because I always hear him as Shad Khan.
That's his dad.
Oh, so I thought his dad owned it. Oh.
So I think his dad technically, his family owns it, I guess.
Yeah, very rich
Tony
family.
himself owns AEW, and his father Shad, who's a billionaire, and I guess Tony is also a billionaire. He owns the Jaguars and like a football club or two overseas or something like that. They're super rich is the bottom line. But yes,
hell of a dynasty.
I guess technically you're right. Shad Khan owns the He's got a mustache. I know
it's a good mustache. Yeah.
It's a pretty good mustache. Tony, no mustache. It's all up here.
You should have called Wes Tony at the beginning instead of Harry Potter.
Has a mustache? Must be named Tony.
Tony Potter. What are we talking about today? This is our technically our holiday show, though by the time you're listening to this, Christmas is over, but it's not New Year's yet, so it's that no man's land between Christmas and New Year's where it's still holiday, but you're waiting for the next big holiday of the year. So it's like Christmas hangover.
And maybe you haven't quite gone back to school or work. Maybe you have. I don't know.
Wait, who's going back to school before New Year?
No, I guess that's true. You're right. Yeah.
I was like, oh my God.
So you're not back in school yet, but maybe you've gone back to work.
Yeah, though I guess maybe, you know what, you never stop learning. Maybe you're learning from home. And you're like, I think I'm going to crack open my lesson book.
I stopped learning at like 35, so I'm done. I'm out.
That's what I told myself as a kid. It's like, I'm going to retire by the time I'm 40, and I'm going to stop learning by the time I'm 35. So yeah, we're just going to be talking about sort of an extension of last week's episode, where we talked about our top 10 personal games of the year with Michael Heim, special guest, shout out to him. Where, now that our top 10 list and GOATY stuff is out there in our latest issue of the magazine, which you should go read right now, we're going to be talking about basically everything else in that issue. We're going to be going down our top 10 games, sort of to give context to why we decided that top 10s. I feel like, and I'm sure this is true for every outlet that does this every year, there's a lot of misconceptions and assumptions about how we decide our games of the year, how do we decide our category winners, and we thought this would be the opportunity to sort of like give you a peek inside those meetings that go on, which like those lists are the result of like hours of discussions and like maybe even debates about what should be on there and what shouldn't be. I think this year in particular was pretty tough because it was a good year for games. It was a damn good year, and we had to.
It was hard to get it down to 10. Yeah.
Yeah, and Wes can attest specifically. Like sometimes your favorites just narrowly miss the cut, and you just have to throw your hands up and go like, "Well, I tried."
We passed the point where it's like, you know what? If it's not on the list, that's less work for me to do, and it's close to the holidays. I'm cool with it.
You do hit that point, at a certain level, absolutely.
Yeah. So we're going to be breaking out our top 10 and then, again, discussing our category picks like, best RPG, best, Sony exclusive, Microsoft exclusive, best dork, all that fun stuff. And yeah, like I said, it's going to give you like it'll be like you were there almost in those meetings, but like not there, like you're behind some like glass, some soundproof glass, so you can't really interfere. But you are seeing people do this a lot. Throwing their hands up. Even though we can't see each other when we're having these meetings, which we should do that next year. We should turn on cameras and just really make it heated of like just people going like, oh, okay, fine. I guess Liza P won't be on the top 10.
I guess, we could start there. I mean, because I figured we'd go down our top 10 first. Maybe you haven't read the article.
I mean, it starts with number 10.
Whole
debate. So
yeah, I mean, number 10. I'm curious if any follow-up discussion happened on this because we basically locked everything down and then I actually left for vacation. But number 10 was like gosh, maybe the most contentious spot for us.
I think
Probably
so.
between that and once we got to like 1 and 2.
Yeah,
it
that
took a while to hash it out.
Yeah, but our number 10, our official number 10 was Street Fighter 6. But the debate, which various members of the staff fell on various sides, was whether Lies of P would take that spot. And Wes, you were very adamant. You wanted 10 for Lies of P, right?
Let me talk directly to the peers, which, as you know, that's the Lies of P community.
You really got to workshop that boy, guys.
Well, I mean, they named the game that, so I don't know whose fault is it ultimately.
Yeah, I fought hard. I fought valiantly. Basically, 2 people had it on their list, and 2 people had Street Fighter 6 on their list. So when we got down to the logistics and the mathematics of it, they were neck and neck. And so then it became like a conversation of like legacy, what it was able to do for the year, how strongly people feel about it. And Street Fighter 6, great game, kind of is the return of Street Fighter after 5 kind of failed fans. And not only did Street Fighter 6 like revitalize Street Fighter, but it did like a lot more, and it definitely like deserves a place on our list. And I'm happy to see it on 10. Me, on the other side, I was arguing for Lies of P because in the same vein, for years, people have been trying to make a From Software like Souls-like. They get close, they have their own spins on it, but it's still missing like that little oomph that only From Software has been able to deliver. For me personally, Lies of P was the first time I'd played one of these, and I play a lot of them, where I was like, this is it. They did it. They have perfected a Souls-like, and for me it's better than some of From Software's own games, which was a big deal for me. So it kind of came down to that argument versus the Street Fighter 6 one, and it was like me and Charles, I think, on the Lies of P side, because we both had it on our top 10, and then Marcus, you, and Brian. But I think Brian was like the main voice for Street Fighter, and I was the main voice for Lies of P, and you guys just kind of let us argue about it.
Yeah, you had a street fight about it.
Yeah. I was softly on the Lies of P side, but it really came down to me just being like, I don't really like fighting games that much, which is like not the best argument to bring to that sort of deal. But Marcus, I mean, you were among the few who played both extensively, right? So
yeah, actually,
in some ways, you kind of. Didn't you sort of make a final call on it just because everyone else was like one or the other, but you were one of the few that was both, if I remember correctly?
Yeah, I guess more or less I was the tipping point because at the time that we were discussing, I had only put maybe 8 hours into Lies of P. Like, it was just one that I wasn't able to get to. So it was like, I played more Street Fighter 6, and so I was like, okay, like I see what Wes is saying, but like I'm leaning Street Fighter 6, but I didn't want to just go pick it because of like, well, I played this more. So, we had extra time to revisit this discussion over the 2 weeks or whatever. So I spent most of that 2 weeks playing Lies of P a lot and put a lot more time into it. I still haven't finished it, but I'm deep in it now, and I am enjoying it. I think it's a great game. I'm loving it. I was swimming in the P, and
boy, we should probably censor that.
liking it a lot. But but still, even then, I was kind of like, okay, this is a very good spin on something very familiar. I like the world a lot. I think that's like maybe the most like interesting element is like that spin on like the Adventures of Pinocchio.
It took something that we thought was going to be cringe or stupid, which is Pinocchio as a Souls-like, and actually made it like not.
Yeah.
Which
to
your point, it worked.
I honestly, I thought it would go like apologize to people that like this game, but I was like, is this going to be like the Hot Topic spin on like a otherwise like whimsical thing? Like, is this going to be like an Alice Madness Returns kind of thing, or it's just like, isn't it cool that this is super dark? And it doesn't feel like that, which I appreciate about it. But then compared to Street Fighter 6, and again, you can make the argument of like, well, it's more Street Fighter, right? And it's like, I think coming off of Street Fighter 5 being as rough as it was for as long as it was, and for them to like just go so far at like beyond making that thing so like not only just fun from like a fight mechanical standpoint, but so like feature dense out of the box. And I think that World Tour mode helped put it over of like, that was just such a big surprise of like, they did this basically like mini Yakuza game it's like better than it has any right to be. And it's like a whole other game basically in the game, but also serves the double purpose of like teaching you the mechanics in a fun way if you don't want to just do the really good tutorial modes that they have, where like honestly those tutorials are so good. It was like, I don't care how bad you are at fighting games, like if you go through those, you will at least have some degree of competency because of how well they break things down. And then like just the new characters they added are all really fun, and I love the art direction. It just felt like, I think Street Fighter just it just did a little bit more, and it feels a little bit more important, I guess. I even now, like, here's the thing about these discussions that always like make me feel bad sometimes. I don't know if you guys have this too, where like this is the time of year where you have to talk, like, you almost have to talk crap about good games because you're trying to get another game over it. Where you're like, I really love Liza P. I fully intend to finish it. I think that game's wonderful, but you gotta like put it against another baby, and you're like, well, you can't have them all. We only have 10 slots, and there's so many games that could go here, so I gotta like come at Wes and be like, I'm sorry, I got to tell you why the thing you really like is not as good as you think.
Even though I also do like it, you know.
Exactly. So you feel like almost a hypocrite. Like, no, I like it too.
I came back from vacation, and then that's when I found out we had made Street Fighter VI our number 10.
Yep, surprise.
I had been told that it was Marcus was like the tipping point for it. We had words, and now Marcus is moving to Minnesota.
Extrapolate what you will from that.
No, but it was funny. I had known I came at it strong because, like, of all the things in this list, Liza Peep is the one I was fighting for most. So I was like the most. This was the one I debated the most, and I think I might have. I wonder if I did it too much because I got back and like day one from my vacation, Matt, you know, editor in chief, was like, "Hey Wesley, can you jump into Discord for me?" And I was like, "Sure, what's up?" And he basically just wanted to like walk me through how we got to Street Fighter 6, because he was like, I know you might have wanted to see Liza P, but like we ended up at Street Fighter 6 at 10, and it was very funny. I was like, oh, I must have like really thrown my everything at Liza P.
Well, Matt's a good boss, man. He's making sure you understand everything. You know?
He's like,
it was appreciative, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, he's like a father taking his kid aside to explain why they're not going to Disney World this year.
Yeah,
we gotta take care of you. We gotta focus on your little brother a little more.
Yeah.
So you have to be a little more mature at this time.
And you know what, the other thing too is like, because Street Fighter is in such a niche genre that tends to get snubbed because it's a fighting game, where it's like there's always been debates about like, was Street Fighter 6 really a GOTY contender, but it just had no chance because it's in such a, you know, it like fighting games are just not as broadly appealing as other genres. And is that fair to Street Fighter if it's like stellar but it's just never going to be up for like the big one because of that?
Well, yeah, because I think I even brought up in these discussions, I was like, I don't really like the argument of like, it's the best fighting game of the year. You know what I mean? Where it's like, well, just because it's a genre leader, it doesn't necessarily mean it just, there's not a fighting game spot that just always exists on the top 10 necessarily. But I feel like the argument, I don't think that's where we landed with the arguments for Street Fighter 6, but it's like, you know, just because it's the best at what it doesn't necessarily mean it wins for that reason. It's got to do something a little more, which I think 6 did this year.
Yeah.
Plus, like, it also... Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, it also, like, beat Mortal Kombat, I think, for a lot of people. Like, and that's, like, not an easy feat either, to come out on top. Like, it's not like Street Fighter 6 released in a vacuum. It released against the other big fighter of the year, and I think came out as... I mean, both are great, but I think Street Fighter 6 is the fighting game of the year.
I mean, I'm more of a Mortal Kombat guy than a Street Fighter guy. I've always been. I love Street Fighter, but MK is my number one, and even I was like, no, Street Fighter's better. Like, I like MK1 a lot, but Street Fighter 6 is better. So because of that, like, that's one reason, like, now that we're away from it, I'm glad that it is on that top 10. It's like, this felt like this would have been wrong to just be like, well, it's the best fighting game and that's all we're going to give it. It's like, no, it needs a little bit more than that. Like, it does so much. And like, we were all so high on it even before it released, all the times we got to play it. So yeah, that was the debate. So like, Wes, extending my hand, gentleman's, handshake, Liza P, number 11.
Probably.
Peers charge up. They're working on a sequel. It's been confirmed. Let's get ready for 2026. We got this. P2 coming at you.
Just like 2 years, huh? You really? Is it? I guess it'd be like 3. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if we'll for the rest, because we'll go down our top 10 fully, but I don't know if we'll discuss them as depth for the rest of these. But that really was like the most figuring out that final spot. I think was one of the tougher ones. Number 9 was Sea of Stars, which was my personal like. I just would like to see this on the list game, if that makes sense. I don't care if it's number 10. I just really love this game. And you guys played it too, right? Did you guys?
Oh yeah,
both?
I love Sea of Stars.
Okay.
I think I was like number 2 to you, being like, yeah, we should. Yeah, let's get Sea of Stars on there.
Okay. Yeah, the debate
I
I'm
hadn't
seeing
started it yet, and I just
time,
beat it days ago, and I'm like a little mad because I think I probably could have joined you two and maybe trying to push it up a little higher because man, Sea of Stars is a damn good game. It's so good.
I mean, you could even look at my personal top 10. It was higher on my personal top 10, but I'm just happy to see it on our top 10 at all is where I'm at with that one. And I think the debate now, the follow-up debate that I've seen as other outlets have like released their top 10s is kind of that Sea of Stars versus Octopath sort of debate. The Octopath fans are very vocal and very passionate. Yeah, but man, and like to be fair, I haven't really given Octopath the strong shot that it deserves, right? But like Sea of Stars is just more in terms of what I like from that style of RPG. Sea of Stars just really nails it for me.
Yeah,
the Chrono Trigger of it all, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
It's just like I had heard everything about it all year. You know, people are talking about it, including you two, like on staff. And I finally started it while on vacation, and then I finished it a few days ago. And yeah, it's just, I mean, I could sing the praises that everybody else has. It's so good. And Octopath, I've heard good things, and I want to try it, and I have it. But when looking at Sea of Stars and Octopath for an RPG to start on vacation, I was like, well, do I start the one I know I'm going to roll credits on in 20 to 30 hours? Or Octopath, which is apparently like an 80-hour RPG. Yeah. And I can't wait to play it one day, but Sea of Stars was, the easy choice there.
Did you guys 100% Sea of Stars?
No. I looked up the true ending because...
Okay, good. Yeah, I would do that if you don't play it.
I would have done the true ending, but finding all the conch shells, I just didn't feel like doing that. Yeah, the other stuff seemed cool, but collectibles is not for me.
Yeah. But I always like to bring that up when we talk about it because I think it is worth pursuing that 100%, right? Like I understand, like it's like I don't want to go collect conch shells. Totally reasonable. I understand that, but like even if you don't do that, look it up. Like go see what you get by completing the game 100% because it's absolutely worthwhile.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, we'll keep just going down the list. Number 8 was Jusant, which a game that I feel like snuck on there like near the end of the year, like in a good way. Like
there's always one of those. I feel like. Yeah, I feel like 2021 Inscription was that.
Yeah.
I think last year I think Marvel Snap was that.
Right. Yeah.
There's always those ones that like sneak on, like it jumps on the wagon as it's pulling out the station. It's like, wait, hold on, don't forget me.
Yeah. No, that was one that I was like, all kinds of previews, trailers. Every time we'd see it, I'd be like, that looks charming. But guys, this year is insane. Like I can't be making time for all these like little good games. But then Jusant just kind of snuck through, and like I think I don't know if you've beaten it, Wes. Marcus reviewed it, but like it really, it made it onto my personal top 10 right there near the end as well. It's just a really beautiful, sweet game.
Yeah,
it's one of my. I was just gonna say it's one of my holiday games to play. I'm like an hour in, but I started on Steam Deck, and I'm not really enjoying it on Steam Deck. Just because like the climb mechanics, I don't know, it's not feeling right. I want to use a controller.
Exactly the same for me. I played about an hour on Steam Deck and then switched over to Xbox and was much happier to play it over there.
I would say almost play it on console because I think the game, because the art direction looks so good, that it should be seen on like a full display.
It is. It is also one of those games that you really grip the controller in a weird way. Like it's just like it's all about your grip, and that extends to you as the player as well, in maybe an unintentional way. And it's just not quite as comfortable to hold a Steam Deck like that.
Yeah, that was one that I was surprised everyone else was as into it as I was. I reviewed the game and I was like, oh yeah, this is great. I'm going to give this a 9. But sometimes you're like, I think this might just be a me thing. Because it's such a specific thing that it's doing.
Yeah, like Wes and Lies of P.
The peers.
The peers.
But even like Lies of P, it was like, well, I like some of us in staff like Souls game. Like I like Souls games. I was like, I was always gonna try it and probably like it unless it really just like crap the bed. But it's like, oh no, like a really meditative climbing game. Like I don't know who on staff is into those. I know I previewed it, so I knew what I was getting into. But just hearing during the GOTY discussions how many people are like, "Oh no, this game's great. I love this," and I was like silently being like, "Oh my god, really?" Like, nice. I didn't think this had a chance to make it in the top 10. I was ready to be like, "Yeah, this is an editor pick for me." But then everyone started coming out the woodwork as like Jusant lovers. So I was like, "Yeah, all right, we did it." So shout out to Don't Nod.
Was I out of the know, or did Don't Nod kind of just let this one like slip out of the radar? Like I feel like it didn't get. I've seen a lot of discussion now because it reviewed well, but I don't even know if I knew about this game until your like preview. To be honest,
it was because they released two games this year. They were gonna do 3, but the third one, Banishers, got delayed to next year. But they had released Harmony: The Fall of Reverie before it.
Right.
Which I felt like that had a little bit more sort of like of a marketing push than Jusant. And because Jusant, it didn't have a long marketing because it premiered at Summer Games Fest. Like that's what they reviewed.
It was on quote unquote stage at like an event.
Because that's where people played it for the first time. I didn't know if you'd seen it there, Wes, when you went.
No, I'd completely missed it somehow. Yeah.
Okay, because I remember hearing other outlets talk about playing it and being like, "Oh, this seems cool." But yeah, so I guess the marketing cycle wasn't really that long to begin with, so maybe that's why.
Yeah, I just remember like you reviewed it and gave it a 9, and I was like, "Oh, I need to check this game out." I hadn't heard much about it up until that point. But yeah, it's cool that it's on our list.
Yeah. Number 7, Super Mario Brothers Wonder, which. I mean, Brian Shea loved, Matt Miller loved. I think me and Blake were actually kind of reticent about this one. I wonder it did not do a lot for me this year, but like I recognize the adoration that some people have for it. I don't know if you guys feel strongly about that game or not. I'm not sure where you guys are at.
So this was interesting where at the time that we had our meetings, Mario was the only game on the list that I had not played at all. So I don't know if you guys remember, I had largely recused myself from that discussion because like I can't really speak to it. I don't want to say it's better or worse than anything else. I'll let the people that played, like when it came down to like comparing it against other games for a spot, I'll let the people that played both or at least played Mario sort of talk about it because it would be weird to be like, well, I think this game should be here, even though I have no idea if I love Mario or not. I'm about to beat Mario now. Like I'm pretty close to the end. So, and I have enjoyed it. I'm probably in the middle of where you guys are, where like I don't think I love it as much as Brian and Miller, but I definitely think I like it more than you and Blake, Kyle.
Right,
sure. I am having a really good time with it, and it does get better as it goes. So I'm like, now I'm kind of like glad it's on the list in the sense of like, yeah, okay, yeah, that's. I think I'm glad where it's placed. I'm glad it's on the lower end. I think I would have more of an issue if it was on the higher end, but at number 7, I'm like, yeah, that kind of matches at least where I'm at personally with it. So, sure.
We had this disclaimer a little bit in the beginning, and it's good to reiterate here. I don't think this is a bad game. It's not like I played it and I was like, this sucks. It's just one of those things. Like it could be just even a matter of like I just was not in the mood for 2D Mario this year. That might be what it comes down to for me. But yeah,
I'm about halfway through it. It was another game I played on vacation, and I'm really enjoying it, but I'm not like dying to get back to it. I think overall I've kind of cooled on Wonder feels like a 3D Mario game but in 2D because they take away the clock, like the time clock, and your focus in each level is really about collecting and like basically 100%ing every level, finding the flower coins, the wonder seeds, all that. And I like that, but I don't know if I necessarily am wanting 2D Mario to be that. And it might just be because I'm stressed. No, like when I go into a level, I'm like, I'm not stopping with this level until I find everything. And I might just be ruining the experience for myself. That said, I'm still really enjoying it. I just have needed to take a break from it. I'm not in the mood for like collectathon.
Yeah.
And this is one of those ones where you have to, again, the top 10 is a collective representation of the staff. So sometimes you almost have to concede to like, okay, like even if I'm like less hot about something, if there's more people that have a passion for it, then they more or less win, unless you can somehow out argue it, because you don't want it to turn into your personal list. Right?
No, it's like you listen to this podcast. Remember, you're hearing like not even half of the opinions here. If you're listening to this and you're like, they seem kind of middling on Mario, I can't believe it's like that high in their top 10. Please recognize that there's a whole bunch of other people that were like over the moon for this game on the staff.
Listen to all things Nintendo.
Right? Yeah, exactly. And speaking of which, same sort of idea. Star Wars Jedi Survivor. I don't know if that was one that any of us three were over the moon for, but there were some people that felt very strongly about it on staff.
I really like that game. Like it was one where it's a Star Wars is a great game that came out in a stacked year. Where it when it came out, you're like, oh yeah, this is better than Fallen Order in basically every way. Which I think Fallen Order was already like a really good game. But then it came out like right before that big juggernaut of May of like, oh, Breath of the Wild's here, and then June came, like, oh, Diablo's here, and Street Fighter, and Final Fantasy, it's all here. So it got buried real fast. Oh, yeah. But for like it almost in a Horizon-like fashion. But it was one of those like, even looking back on it, it's like, yeah, I had a lot of fun with that game, like a lot of fun, and you almost have to remove that recency bias to sort of like scrape away and try to get back to how you felt when it first came out, you know? And that was where I was like, yeah, Star Wars was good. I'm down with getting that on there. And again, especially because other people and staff that aren't here were like, you mentioned, like super into it. And I was super into it too. Like, you know, maybe not as much, but I really like that game.
Yeah, it's what I want to play more of.
I loved it and beat it, like devoured it up, and it had some of my favorite. It had probably my favorite video game moment in recent years until I played Final Fantasy 16, which then took over. And then for some reason, like the more time went on, my opinion of Survivor didn't change. I just didn't think about it really ever. And when I'm like picking the games of the year for me, like it's the ones that like stick with me all year, which in a year like this is especially important for me because like every game I played this year could be on the list arguably in some way. So like Survivor was great and I loved it. For me personally, it didn't like stick with me as much as I would have thought, but I'm happy with 6. And yeah, we had, I think it was Miller and Charles who were like, this was like way up there for them.
And Alex too.
Yeah, Alex, yes, that's right. Yeah. It's a great game though. Yeah. Any other year than 2023, I think it would be like a good bit higher, to be honest.
Yeah, probably top 5, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of top 5, Wes, I believe your favorite game of the year, right?
Yeah,
Alan Wake 2.
Of the year.
Yeah.
This is the one I'm most excited to talk about because I think this game, more than any on the list, sort of encompasses the spirit of this list. Because I've seen people be like, how Game Informer gave this a 7.75. How is this on your top 10, let alone like...
Can't believe they did that. What were they thinking?
And it's like, again, this I'm happy it's on the list because of this. Because it's like, Kyle, you reviewed the game.
Yeah, no, I mean, I am the one that gave it a 7.75, and that's how I felt about that game. It just didn't... I love Remedy. I will continue to love Remedy. I will be there day one for all of their games, like, absolutely. But Alan Wake 2 just, like, didn't, like, click with me in the same way it did for some people. And it, like, a lot of the discussions for me were, like, I'm not going to, like, fight for it to, like, not be on the list when there's a whole bunch of people on staff who it did click with and they loved it. You know, like, I'm sort of a dissenting opinion among many other really positive ones. And like I was certainly, it's like, and the thing about Alan Wake 2 is that it's such like a strange, interesting game that even though it's like I didn't like love it as much as most people, it's still something I want to like highlight and point to and be like, I want other developers to be this weird and experimental, you know? Like that's cool with me.
Yeah, and it's not like any of us, like, we're not saying that Kyle was wrong.
Yeah.
You know, the people that liked Alan Wake more of like, how could you do this? It's like, is his opinion and his score is as valid as any of ours, because that's just how criticism works, right? It's like, hey, you know, I like chocolate, you like vanilla, and nobody's wrong. And I, like this, like so many other people on staff, like Wes, were so passionate about Alan Wake. Blake was another one who was a big cheerleader for it. It's like you can't deny that passion. So it's like, again, it becomes almost like a numbers game. Like, well, more people are saying this is their game of the year, like their personal game of the year or close to it. So it's got to be on the list, right? Just so I'm happy it's there for that. Of like people, just as a reminder to people that a review score is representative of one person's opinion and not the staff. So when people do those arbitrary comparisons, like, well, they gave this score this, but this other completely different game from a completely different writer is this score, it doesn't make sense. And it's like, no, it doesn't make sense when you look at it like that. It's not, because that's not how that works. You can't get mad at Kyle and then be like, well, they gave Street Fighter 6 a 9. It's like, yeah, it's a fighting game, it's totally different genre and expectations from a different person with different taste. And again, you think that should go without saying, but obviously not.
Alas. Yeah.
Yes.
Story of our lives.
Yeah. Alan Wake 2 is my personal game of the year, and to everything we've said here, like, I read Kyle's review but before I played the game and after, and I'm like, yeah, I 100% see like all his criticism, all the things he said about it, I can see. It's just like when I played the game, different parts hit differently for me. So like the things that weighed down his experience didn't weigh down my experience, and so the highs that I was getting from the game elevated even more. And that's like, we are different people, and that's how life works. But yeah, Alan Wake 2, I never played the first Alan Wake. It's one of those games where it just has so much of what Wesley wants in a game for its formula that I was like a couple hours in and I was like, man, I couldn't stop playing the game. Like, just vibes, the visuals, the storytelling, the weirdness of it all. It was just so unique and different that for me, it's like the standout for me. But it's so easy to see people who don't like I have friends who are playing it and they're like, I don't see what you see in this game. And I hear what they say they don't like about it, and I'm like,
you're not
that's
friends
fair.
with them anymore.
That's fair. Yeah, they're moving to Minnesota now. But yeah, I think like 5 is the perfect spot for it on our list, given the
upper
different
half.
Like, passions for this game. Yeah.
Marcus, are you an Alan Wake fan? I mean, I'm like looking at your top 10. It's not on your top 10. Did you play it, or?
I'm still playing it, so
okay.
That's why it's not in my top 10. It's more of a like, I at the time we had to do our top 10s, I hadn't played enough to know whether or not it would beat the other games that I had finished or played more of.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it was more of a numbers game. Anything I put a lot more time into it. Now I have not finished it, but I'm enjoying it. I don't think I'm like as like this is a revelatory experience as other people, but I am having a good time. Like, I am recognizing like, okay, this is a really cool thing that they're doing. Like the way, especially the art direction and the mixed media stuff, I think is awesome. I got past a few days ago the big part that is our moment of the year.
Yeah.
Which I'm almost upset was sort of like spoiled for me at the Game Awards. Like,
oh gosh, I didn't even think of that. Yeah,
which I didn't realize because I watched it not knowing what that was. I just thought
you were probably like, "What is this game?"
Why is
I just
Sam
thought they were
Lake
doing
on
a
stage?
Because I was like, "Oh, that game's goofy. They're just doing a goofy musical number on stage." And I didn't realize that. Oh no, that's just straight from the game. Okay,
yeah, yeah. That was one of those moments. I remember playing it pre-release and being like, I can't talk about this. I can't tell anyone about this until I know for sure they have played the game, and this is going to be one of the best moments of the year, and it was Game Informer's.
I think that was a good idea in hindsight to put that out there in the Game Awards. Such a big moment to just basically say, here it is. When the game was like barely 2 months old.
I feel like the people
actually not even 2 months old, like a month and a half maybe at most.
I think that sequence was like for the Alan Wake sickos, whether it's like the ones who have been with Alan Wake for 13 years or the people who played it recently, and like they have played Alan Wake 2 already because they are the sickos. So I feel like, I don't know, I feel like it worked. And then, well, you hadn't gotten to that moment yet, but I had a friend who has not played it and he was watching, and that like got him to start it. That was something that enticed him to start it, because he was like, I want to like, what is this.
Yeah, gosh. Yeah, at
yeah,
that
it
point,
is
months
interesting.
later, yeah, I don't know.
Because it's not like spoiling the game; it's just spoiling a moment. Like it's not spoiling the story or anything.
It's not. Yeah.
It's like it's so. I mean, it's one of a kind, so it's hard to even like know how to talk about this. Like it's no other game has done anything like it.
The way it's actually implemented in the game is much different than what you watched. Like it's the same core thing, but it's like in terms of how it actually unfolds in the game is much different. And that was a surprise to me. Like actually going through the same, like, okay, this is actually cooler than just watching it. I like what they did here. I don't know if I've seen anything like this in the game. It's like, and that was another one where like, because we voted it as our best moment, spoiler for later discussion. And at the time, again, that was when I just recused myself. I just like, I believe you guys because you guys are so passionate about
trust
it.
you all. Yeah.
But now I'm like, okay, I see it now. Yeah, this rules. Okay.
Yeah. Number 4, a less divisive game, I think, maybe arguably, is a Resident Evil 4 remake, which I think everyone, but I think Charles, I don't know if he's played it. Charles, I think, started it and didn't have anything negative to say about it. I don't want to speak on, I'm not trying to throw Charles under the bus, but he was just kind of like, it seems okay. I don't know. He has no nostalgia.
He
for
had
the
never
original.
played the original either. I think.
But I think
so. He had an interesting perspective of like he doesn't have that nostalgia.
Yeah.
Attachment.
But I think all the rest of us were just like, yeah, just they nailed
Resident
it,
Evil 4.
man. It's like it's so good. It's my number 2. Like I loved Resident Evil 4.
Yeah, it's my number 3 on my personal list, and I think the only like any form of pushback was like, and we decided this immediately was like, okay, are we gonna throw this game on as a remake? Like, is it eligible? Which we have that discussion every year of like, are remakes eligible for the top 10? And it just comes down to like, I don't know, it depends how good the remake is, really, right? And I think this was the year where like they did so much more to it than just make it look nicer that it does feel like a new game. And I've said this a million times, but it's like they did what maybe no other remake has done, where like it tricks your brain to thinking that it came out in 2023 originally instead of 2005. Like it feels like a brand new modern game, and then to the point where like I bet people that didn't play the original or don't know that it's a remake, because it's not like it says remake on the title or anything. I feel like they would be surprised if you told them that like no, this came out like almost 20 years ago, actually.
Yeah.
This is the nice quote unquote version of it.
Capcom has been smart to release these remakes when they do, because they're giving it time for us to get to a remake like this and then be like, oh yeah, like we actually could have used this. This is great. Whereas like when you play The Last of Us Part 1, for example, which did not make our list last year, or I don't even think it was in a discussion. I don't know if anybody was like played that and it was revelatory or you felt like it needed to exist. It's great.
Blake was negative on it. Remember he wrote an opinion piece saying like, it actually diminishes my memory of the first game. The original version of it, I guess.
Like a good remake requires the amount of time to simmer. Like it needs to let time happen between the two.
Yeah.
And I think Capcom picked a perfect time for that.
Yeah, sometimes a game just needs to be really good at what it does, and there's not much more to it than that. Between like the main game and the Separate Ways DLC, which is also really, really good. It's like this game, you can't deny it. Like we all love this game. The people most of it that played it. So
yeah, I have it on iPhone now. Because Apple.
I forgot about that.
Like, do I play it again on there? Maybe I might play it again on my phone. Maybe we'll see.
What is the like if you don't hook up a controller to it, how do they make you play? Is it like gyro or do you use like touch screen?
They make it unplayable in an interesting way. It's nearly impossible. It's a virtual controller on the screen, which I showed Marcus. Do you remember Marcus? I played Village. It is 1-to-1. It's this exact same for Resident Evil 4.
I saw that.
That's
in
what
GT,
I figured.
Yeah. So it looks great. It's cool to have it on iPhone, but if you get some kind of backbone controller or Bluetooth your PS4 controller or something, like that game was not made to be played with a touchscreen, and it shows. But yeah, anyway, good game.
Don't touch Leon.
Don't touch Leon. Yeah, right. Number 3, another. Not another one that I don't think was really divisive. Really was Spider-Man 2. Like, the most negative thing that I feel like we said about it in all our discussions were like we didn't like the story as much as like the other two, and even that was like, I don't know, it was just this game that all of us played and had a great time with ultimately. Like,
yeah,
it was like
it was like the biggest con, but like the pro column had just way too much. Whereas like if the worst thing we can say is like, the story, which is still good, just wasn't as good as the first two, which is those first two stories, especially Miles Morales, are so good. It is like, we're not saying this is a bad story. It's just following two very, very, very good stories. So
yeah, and it's also the one that, like, if you go back to Miles or the original Spider-Man, like, that's when you realize like how improved 2 is in terms of like speed and the gliding and all those things.
Yeah, everything else basically.
I think like we've had this discussion a few times for like updating lists and stuff, and I think me and Marcus especially have been like, look, besides story, everything in Spider-Man 2 is better than the other ones. Like, it's just the story that didn't land as hard. But like, I don't know if you guys have gone back to 1 or Miles Morales, but it is a little tough to play. Like, with 2 so fresh on my mind, I miss the wings, I miss the speed, I miss some of the powers. Like, I
mean, even having like the weapon selection streamlined in 2, I think people forget when you play the first game of Miles Morales, like you had to pause the game constantly to do that weapon wheel to select your web gadgets. So like you're constantly kind of like spoiling the pace of like combat encounters, and to just have it, even that little thing with Spider-Man 2, like, no, I could just select it just instantly and I could still keep going. Like, that's hard to go back to now in the other 2 games. And then just the side missions being more meaningful and having just more meat to them in this game, and obviously the web swinging being the best it's ever been, and just the combat, it's like, this is just hands down like just a better Spider-Man game. Like, they've learned, this is the culmination of all the lessons they've learned with the last 2 games realized here. You know,
good game, turns out.
Great game.
I wonder if we talk about 1 and 2 in tandem, because they really came down to our like. Look, I'm just gonna say, you guys, our number 2 was Baldur's Gate 3, and our number 1 was Tears of the Kingdom.
I feel the tomatoes flying at us.
Which, like, I think we had a TGA's prediction episode, and I think even then I was like, I bet Baldur's Gate 3 is going to take it, just because the people who have loved it are just absolutely over the moon for it. It's just like, it's the greatest thing that's ever happened to them, and I'm happy for them.
I'm always fascinated by people that get so offended by the rankings of other people. You know, and I say this because like this is like where it's happening, right? It's like there's the Tears of the Kingdom camp, and then there's the Baldur's Gate 3 camp. And I've noticed, because Baldur's Gate 3 is our number 2, it's like we told them that it wasn't on the list at all with how angry some of them are.
Right.
And it's like, we just, like we said, it's the second best game of arguably the best year ever. Like, only 1 game is higher than it.
Yeah.
But that's not good enough. It's like, and I get being passionate about it. And I say this as someone that really loves Baldur's Gate 3. I'm still playing through it. And I said this in the last episode, like, I've put in more time since we had to originally put our list together, and if I was making my top 10 now, it would be a spot or 2 higher, because it's just that good. But I'm with you, Connor. Like, just, if you point a gun to my head, I'm gonna also say Zelda, because I had an amazing time with Zelda, and I don't know. I don't know. I don't get it sometimes, the sheer vitriol that people have when you see a list and you go like, you guys' opinions don't match mine, so I hate you now. And it's like, it's cool if it's your favorite game of the year. It doesn't take that away, or it doesn't take away the fact that it's one that's already won a ton of awards from other places. And no, we didn't pick it to be hipsters and be like, we're gonna be different by giving it to Zelda. It's like, that never is a factor ever.
And I mean, and it's also it's not a vote, right? We don't really vote on these in the proper sense. It's more like a measure of internal passion. And there was absolutely some really strong passion for Baldur's Gate 3. But I think Matt Miller, editor-in-chief, his smart sort of reaction was kind of like, all right, because we're between Baldur's Gate 3 and Zelda. Like, those were the two that we were trying to figure out the 1 and 2 spots. And Matt was like, well, let's take a step back, and I want everyone to sort of put together their personal top 10s. And I want us to, like, reflect on those and look at those before we make the final decision. And, like, for anyone that is surprised that we put Zelda first as an outlet, look at all the editor top 10s. I mean, there's just more general passion for Zelda among this group, Yeah,
right.
I think it just more is representative of Game Informer, in that more of us just love Zelda. I mean, we all love Zelda, and like Baldur's Gate 3 is a weird one for me because it's really not my genre. But like I admire it, and I am sort of blown away by what it was able to pull off this year. It's really been incredible. I mean, a lot of us really loved Zelda a lot. I'm one of them. I absolutely adore Tears of the Kingdom,
Yeah, I'm actually having flashbacks to those discussions. I want to stress that, like, it was not an easy decision.
No,
it
not at
rarely
all.
ever is with these, but like that was one where we had to revisit it and come back after a few days or a week so more people could play Baldur's Gate, and then it felt like it's easier now that we're it's done and we can move away from it, but it felt like no matter what the outcome was, it would feel almost a little bad because you're like, oh, maybe it should be Zelda that's number 1 and not Baldur's Gate. Like, and even then it's like, maybe it should be Baldur's Gate. I don't know, which is a sign that they're both really great games. And it's like, I don't know what the right answer is. Like, can we just say they're both 1A and 1B or something?
Yeah, that's cheating. We can't do that.
We don't do that here.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, I really love Tears of the Kingdom. I mean, we've talked about it a lot throughout the year of just what that game does and the way it sort of the tools that it gives you. And then the arguments for Baldur's Gate 3 were just about how much control it gives you over the narrative and like the direction of the game. And it's interesting that these two games in particular are so elevated by sort of a player direction and like their sort of control over what they want the experience to be, but in different ways. Like it's interesting that those two games are similar in some ways emotionally, but then like mechanically, like staggeringly different. It's so strange that those two games are kind of, I don't know, to me the two defining games of 2023.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Any other final thoughts on our top 10 before we talk about some of our what do we call them? Genre awards, category winners, we call them.
I mean, we could talk about, if you want to run down the list, like games that just were on the bubble that didn't make it. Like,
sure. Yeah, Liza P.
There was oh god,
I'm trying to pull up our list now.
I know Mortal Kombat 1 was one that was briefly discussed.
Well, we had our editor picks, right? The way we do it in the magazine is we have our top 10 lists, and then we have category winners, which are like best Microsoft exclusive, best RPG, etc. And then we do editor picks where we pick a number. We pick. I think we get the number. I think we had like 25 editor picks this year.
20 something like that.
And that's the space where we all sort of are individually write about like our favorite games that didn't quite make the top 10, but we still love. And I think like, yeah, I mean, I think for us three, we can even kind of run down the ones that we wrote. Like I really loved Cocoon and Pikmin 4. The Dead Space remake, Wolong Fallen Dynasty was one that I was excited to have because it was kind of like Lies of P absolutely was like, if you're going to look at the Souls-like that From Software didn't make this year, I feel like Lies of P was like the winner. But then I was kind of like, but I actually really enjoyed Wolong as well as like this really fun sort of Sekiro inspired, like heavily focused on counters style of a from inspired Souls-like game. So I was excited to put a piece in there. But Wes, do you remember
when you brought up Pikmin 4? I feel like that was another one that was in discussion for top 10 too.
Yeah, I think so.
I think just not enough played it really. Like it's because you gave it a 9. Right?
Yeah, I loved. Yeah, Pikmin 4 I really liked a lot. It was
and it wasn't just like a Kyle thing. Like everyone that reviewed Pikmin 4 like really loved Pikmin 4.
I like Pikmin 4.
Yeah, I think it just for a lot of us flew under the radar, or like not under the radar. We knew about it, but just didn't get
not
to
enough
it.
of us.
When did it come out? Was it like a rough time?
September, it feels like August, September, or something like that.
Which was Baldur's Gate 3 time, so the rest of the world was playing Baldur's Gate 3 probably.
It was July 21st.
Oh, July, okay.
It's also one of those. Pikmin is kind of one of those games that you sort of know what to expect, right? Like even my pitch for Pikmin 4 is like it's the best Pikmin. Where it's like with video games, with us in particular, I think we sort of try to seek out the experiences that we know will do something new for us, or maybe something we haven't really seen in a video game before, instead of like this is the best version of that game you're familiar with. It's kind of why like a lot of us don't really get super excited about Call of Duty every year. Like, and that I'm not even talking about the fact that the campaign was really underwhelming this year, but I mean like for the last like 5 or 6 years, we're all kind of like, we know what that game's gonna be. I'd rather spend my time playing Toussaint.
Yeah, like Zelda had Ultra Hand and Ascend and all those cool things that really flipped the game on its head.
Yeah.
And then Pikmin, on its face, was like, like a really good Pikmin game, and it is definitely the best Pikmin game ever. But I think Pikmin, in terms of Nintendo's franchises, it's like more. It's not as universally like I wouldn't say loved, but it's not. It's like you really know whether you like that style of game or not. I feel like Mario and Zelda have broader appeal in general. Whereas Pikmin is such a very weird and specific thing it does, where it's like it's just a little bit more polarizing by default. Like even the best version of Pikmin, if you're just not into what that game's doing, you're just not gonna like it.
Yeah,
it's also I haven't played 4 yet, and I know 3 was like easier, but Pikmin is not an easy game. Like in the same way that you can jump into Mario or Zelda and like kind of less so Zelda, but kind of have a good idea of what you're doing. Like especially Pikmin 1 and 2, which I played for the first time like in the past 2 years. Man, those are hard games. Like I don't know how children on GameCube were playing through them. Pikmin 2 gave me so much trouble, and I've been playing games for like 20 years. So like to your point, not only is it like a broadly appealing game, it's also not. I don't know if kids picking it up, like they might, an 8-year-old might see a cute Pikmin. I don't know how far they're going to get into a Pikmin game though.
Yeah, they're very like systems heavy games, really, because it's ultimately like a management sim.
Yeah.
I want to shout out also, because he's not here to do it. Humanity was one that I feel like it was in serious discussion for top 10 purely on like Blake and Alex's passion, and I felt like it just got like narrowly got cut. But there was a time where Humanity almost made the top 10.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you guys want to go through, like, Wes, do you want to go over like the ones that you wrote editor picks? I have the list in front of me. If you don't, I can tell you. I can remind you what you wrote if you need.
Liza P was the first editor's pick I chose, and it was like pretty obvious why, and I've already talked about it, but I mean, Liza P rules. If you like Souls-likes, you should play Liza P. The next one I wrote was Disney Illusion Island, which I don't think ever really had a shot in our top 10. I think I gave it an 8.5. But like as someone who likes Disney, I live 2 hours away from Orlando. I've been to Disney World a lot of times. I like Disney's history. I talked to this studio for like a big feature. I really got to know them and like their fascination with Disney, and then Disney's involvement with this. There was just so much love put into this game and like care to the history of Mickey Mouse, which is one of the most famous characters in the world. And then to get to play like as Mickey Mouse and friends in this really fun, family-friendly platformer. There's no combat. It's just all about platforming through this very pretty world. One of the best scores of the year. Like undoubtedly, the music of Disney Illusion Island is fantastic. It's orchestral too. It's really great. I wrote a feature about the music, talking to the composer on Game Informer if you want to read it. This is like a game I would recommend to anyone with a family or kids who are trying to get into games, or anyone that just likes Disney. Like if you want a feel-good Saturday morning Disney-type cartoon experience, Disney Illusion Island is awesome. And the other one I wrote, besides those two, was Immortals of Avium, which is the first-person shooter, but instead of guns, it's magic game. Came out from Ascendant Studios in July or August. It got delayed to get away from games and to get some polish, and unfortunately it just slotted right into another part of the year that was extremely busy.
Such a tough year.
It's if you're not like an established IP or a giant new game like Final Fantasy 16, for example, it was a tough year. And Immortals of Avium was trying to do something different in the shooter genre, and it's a new IP from a new studio. Had a lot going against it, unfortunately. I really liked it. I gave it an 8. It did a lot new in the shooter genre, which I appreciate because for the most part, I'm not too wowed by shooters these days. Like especially at least the big AAA releases like Call of Duty and whatnot. I like them, but I know what I'm getting. Immortals of Avium flipped the script on me and gave me lots of new. And I just kind of wanted to highlight that. I think it's really cool that a new studio was like, we're gonna put out a AAA first-person shooter, but it's not going to be military like all the other ones. We're going to try something different. I wish it worked better for them because the studio unfortunately went through layoffs this year after the game's release, which sucks.
Yeah.
And I don't know the status of Ascendant Studios, but they laid off 45% of the staff, which sucks a lot. And I think it's just, the game didn't get into enough people's hands. But if you want a good first-person shooter that'll take you 10, 15 hours, definitely check out Immortals of Avium.
Yeah, that game feels destined to be like a cult favorite years later, where we're gonna look back and be like, man, if people didn't give this game a real shot, 'cause it came out in such a loaded year where it just got buried. It's like, man, this was really cool. We should do this again.
It's one of those games I have like various video game podcasts I listen to. It's one of those where like they're talking about end of the year stuff and they're like, yeah, I tried out that Immortals of Avium game recently and man, that's like a pretty good game. And I'm like, I wish you tried it months ago.
They're coming on to it late. Yeah. I guess so.
Yeah.
Marcus, you had a few as well, obviously. Let's see. Bayonetta. I know you've been like a big proponent of that one.
Oh yeah, I mean I won't bore people because I feel like I had my Bayonetta rah session last episode.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Thank you, Michael Heim, for being my co-cheerleader on that because it's also one of his top 10 games of the year. That was one that. Oh, excuse me. That was one where I was like, I knew that was like my number one editor pick of like, of anything else that I could shout out, like, there's nothing more that I want to, this needs to go somewhere. Because it felt like one of those games where like, I tried to put it in as many categories for like possible nominations of like, best art direction or best like soundtrack. But it, again, because of how stacked the year was, it was like, man, I don't think it's going to beat, like Final Fantasy's in best soundtrack. It's not going to beat that. Alan Wake's in best art direction. Dang it. It just felt like there was always something bigger that was going to one-up it where it just wasn't good enough to get it over the edge. So like it became my mission of like at least get as many people on staff to check it out as possible. So I'm not the only like person on an island like, hey, that Bayonetta game that looks like a Winnie the Pooh story is pretty good. So I'm glad that one was there. Trying to remember my other editor picks.
Dredge was another one you had. Yeah.
That was a cool one because that was one we weren't able to do a review of. That was one of the games sort of just slipped through the cracks in terms of like the review period. And then I think some of us got to it afterwards. I like Dredge a lot. It's funny because I hate fishing in real life. It bores me. I don't have the patience for it. And I actually don't like fishing in video games a lot. Like fishing minigames also annoy me, and they really got to be like pretty engaging for me to want to like ignore the actual fun stuff in the game, like the main story and stuff. Or like, why would I sit here and pretend to do a virtual version of a thing I don't even like doing in real life? And Dredge found a way to make that fun with like the horror stuff on the edges and just the weird story that it tells. And I think it looks nice too. I don't think people give that game's art direction enough credit. I think it's got like a kind of a nice style, and especially I think the character portraits, like how weird everybody looks.
It's creepy.
Like,
like
everyone just and all the like the demon fish that you find when you find like the corrupted version of them, they look genuinely kind of like, oh, that's gross. Get that. Why are we keeping this? Throw that back in the water. It's got like weird eyeballs all over it. So yeah, I like that game. I think it's for like indie games, it's one that I think people should go out of their way to check out more. And another indie game, Dave the Diver, they just got that free DLC that is like a crossover with Dredge, which is pretty cool. The two big fishing games of the year coming together.
And Sea of Stars. Sea of Stars has a lot of fishing too, if you want to pursue it.
You know what? I actually like Sea of Stars' fishing. It's one of the
Me
few
too.
I will stop. And granted, it's also we kind of have to because I was like, well, I got to cook food, so I better go get some shrimp. But at least they make it quick and painless.
Yeah.
So I shout out to that fishing. One that came in pretty hot is Venba, where
right, yeah.
I beat that game like 2 weeks ago. It's a very short game, like 2 hours. But it was one that as soon as I beat it, I was like, okay, we still have slots for editor picks, right? Like, can I get this on there? Because I think we should mention this. This is another one that we weren't able to review, just again, so much stuff and so little time. But I'm glad I played it. That game rules. It's if you haven't seen it, it's a cooking game. Well, it's weird because it's like I almost had to call it a cooking game of like, yes, cooking is the main mechanic, but it's more of like a narrative drama that uses cooking more as like a vehicle to tell a really like affecting story about immigrant parents from India coming to Canada and all the struggles that come with that, mainly trying to raise a son that was born there who is now kind of like having an identity crisis about embracing his heritage while also trying to basically assimilate with his like Canadian friends and going through the thing of like, well, I don't want to bring our food to them because I get made fun of for it because it's not pizza, it's like this weird dish that is native to their Tamil, and I like that story a lot. And if you're not, I'm not even like the child of immigrant parents, but I think that game's like if you're a child of an immigrant parent, I think you should absolutely go out of your way to play because I think it hits a lot of the same those familiar themes. But I think even if you're not, just the broader message of just like not forgetting where you came from and not being ashamed of your background regardless of what it is hit home a lot. And again, it's a short game. You can finish it in like under 2 hours. The art direction looks great, music's great. It rules. So I'm glad that I was able to call that out.
Wes, another one is Theater Rhythm, Final Fantasy. You wrote that one as well.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Theater Rhythm is one of the best games of the year, but I don't, just because of what it is, I don't think it really had any shot of cracking too many top 10s.
Yeah,
like,
it was an interesting discussion because we were kind of like, it's sort of like another version of the 3DS game, but it is new, but it's kind of not. No, it's not. It's more than a remake. It's less of. It's not a. It's way more than a remaster. Like, it was a weird one, but one that you loved undeniably, right?
Yeah, it's like it's a niche within a niche. So I think more people should play it if you like Final Fantasy music, but I don't even know if liking Final Fantasy music is enough to like Theater Rhythm, because it is a music rhythm game first and foremost, with arguably some of the best music in all the video games, of course. But it is a weird music video game, and I had played them on 3DS, so I knew what I was getting into, because it's not trying to be Guitar Hero, it's not trying to be Rock Band or Amplitude or anything like that. It is its very own mechanics, and they're strange and weird, and they don't even necessarily feel good at first, but they do eventually click. For me, it was just like, yeah, it's 360 plus Final Fantasy songs. Each has its own little vignette thing that plays when you play the song. It's a great rhythm game, and it's a great way for me to listen to some of my favorite music in games. I mean, it was that simple for me. Like, I just had a great time. It didn't really have any issues other than like, I wonder what a Final Fantasy with a less strange rhythm game would be like. But like, I can't fault it for that. It's trying to do something different in it, and it does it well. It's great. It's one I still play. Probably one of the games I played most this year outside of like multiplayer, just because it's fun to just go in there and play. Oh, now there's Chrono Trigger tracks, or oh, now Nier's there, or Final Fantasy 16, which is very awesome. Yeah, if you like Final Fantasy music and you like rhythm games,
just Square Enix music, really. I mean, honestly.
True, yeah, at this point now, yeah.
Because they added like Nier tracks, right?
Yeah, Nier,
The World Ends With You, Chrono series, Xenogears.
Xenogears.
What haven't they added? Can we get like
Kingdom Hearts is not there.
Oh, that's surprising. Actually,
well,
you gotta go play Melody.
I was about to say it got its own sort of rhythm game last year, right?
Yeah.
Nomura would have to justify narratively why it was in Theater Rhythm. They're like, well, if it doesn't tie to the story, I'm not interested.
Yeah, Sora would have to acknowledge that in Kingdom Hearts 4.
But yeah, we can run through a bunch of other these just sort of quickly. Like a Dragon Gaiden was one that we were like kind of going between Ishin and Gaiden, and we ended up going Gaiden, which I think is the right call. I didn't play Ishin this year, but I played Gaiden and really enjoyed it. Mortal Kombat 1. Viewfinder was actually one that I wrote that I forgot about. Diablo 4. Starfield we gave another pick. I know Matt had a good time with that one. Dave the Diver, Assassin's Creed Mirage, Mario RPG. The Murder of Sonic the Hedgehog, I like that we got on there kind of at the last second. We weren't sure if we are gonna have room for it, but Charles put one of those on there.
The best Sonic game of the year.
Yeah, I know.
I say this is the guy that reviewed Superstars.
Yeah, what do we want to approach? I mean, because should we go? I can go through the category winners quickly, or I can.
Yeah,
I would love to do category because I have there's one game that we have not talked about, and there's a reason for that, but it ties into our category discussions.
Right.
And I feel like
which one?
And that is Final Fantasy 16.
Right.
I feel like that was the biggest game that we just did not know what to do with it in terms of like where to put it, because like I think generally a lot of us really liked it, but like ultimately not enough to get in the top 10. But then we liked individual elements of it so much that it won like quite a few, like I think it won like 3 different category awards because it won like best score, music,
and hero, I think. Yeah, Clive
hero.
Yes,
hero.
Clive won best hero, which is, we can get into that discussion too for a bit for people that wonder what that actually means. And I think it won something else that I'm forgetting.
Best boss.
Best boss fight. Yeah, the Bahamut boss fight.
Right, yeah, because that was one that we were like, we were talking about maybe doing the end of Tears of the Kingdom as well. I think it was sort of the debate there.
Yeah. Did we put that as boss fight or moment?
Well,
or was that when we
best moment was Alan Wake, and then
that's right.
Boss fight was
it spun off.
Boss fight
that.
was Final Fantasy, and then what we did is we gave Ganondorf like best villain to sort of encompass everything about fighting him and who he was in that game. Like, yeah, we kind of find ways to try to give flowers to the games we want in different ways, you know?
Yeah, because like traditionally, best moment is one that GI's had for years, but like you said, it came down to like the big ones like the Bahamut fight and then Alan Wake, and it was like, well, what if we still want to talk about the Bahamut fight, especially because Wes, and so you were like super passionate about that, so like, well, best boss fight, that could work. There's a lot of good boss fights this year. Let's just make it's. You realize like, hey, we can make our own rules. It's our our list. We can make our own categories as we go when needed. But yeah, Final Fantasy just felt like it was in this interesting limbo of like, we want to give it its flowers, but I guess not enough to put it in like a sort of a dedicated space. Yeah, because I don't think it's anyone's editor pick either.
I gave it an 8.5 when I reviewed it, and of all my reviews this year, I mean, I'm very proud of all my scores. I feel like for Final Fantasy 16, that's the one that I like truly nailed the most. And even looking back, I'm like, I nailed it with 8.5 because it kind of speaks to this list where it's like, it has so much good going for it. Like if you do the highlight reel of Final Fantasy 16, it's one of the best games of the year. But like it has like an 8.5, it's almost a 9, but it has just a few things where it's like, I wish you didn't do this, or I wish you did this better. And I think when you're arguing a top 10 in the year that is 2023, there's really no room for games that didn't pretty much excel in all ways. Like every game on our top 10 is, I mean, it's awesome. It's the top 10 best games of the year. Like they have little to argue about them not being great. And for a lot of people on staff. And yeah, I think that was 16's thing, is we were like, oh, it does have this, it's so great, but it also didn't really nail the RPG part of the game. But its combat is amazing, but sometimes it gets repetitive, and I don't know.
That was a tough one. We do like to, we sort of lean on our top 10 list that we come up with to sort of give a lot of category winners. So like Game of the Year was Zelda, and then like, for example, best Sony exclusive goes to Spider-Man, because we called that, was it the 3rd or 4th best game of the year? I know
Number 3
just went over the list, but I've already forgotten. And so we want to like highlight that as like, if we're going to put it this high on our list, then it deserves the category. But some of the ones that didn't sort of slot into that, right, where you could look at the top 10 and extrapolate things, was like best Microsoft exclusive was Hi-Fi Rush. which there really wasn't much of a debate there. That was a pretty easy
that was pretty
pick.
unanimous.
Yeah.
Sorry, Starfield. But
Yeah,
we all
truly.
liked Hi-Fi Rush more.
And then I remember PC exclusive was kind of a funny one because there were so few proper PC exclusives this year.
It would have been Baldur's Gate.
Yeah, it would have been Baldur's Gate.
Or it would have been Dave the Diver if it hadn't come to Switch, honestly.
Yeah, probably. True. But yeah, Alex was a really big proponent for Friends versus Friends, which is like a fun multiplayer shooter. And best strategy, Fire Emblem Engage, which is like the perfect, to me, example of like, oh, right, yes, that was a 2023 game, and we did like it. We got to make sure we don't forget it.
That was literally, like, I think January, like, first couple weeks of January when that came out, because that's the first piece I wrote for Game Informer in January was my review, I think.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm glad we were able to give that one some flowers, because I think a lot of people forgot about it, and it's a good game.
And then similarly, we had Best Action, which we wanted to give to Spider-Man 2 because we felt that was like, if you look at it as like an overall piece with every element of the game for action, we liked Spider-Man 2, but we wanted to highlight the action of Armored Core 6, which if you focus in on that one element of the game, we loved that. So we gave Armored Core 6 Best Combat. Because we just love the combat of Armored Core 6.
If that's not clear, like, think of it as like saying like Die Hard is the best action movie ever made. But does that necessarily mean it has the best fight scenes of any movie? No. Like,
yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Maybe the best choreographed fight scenes is like, I don't know, off the top of my head, let's just say like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon or something. We're like, oh, the fight scenes are way better in that one. But like as an overall action experience, I'll take Die Hard. And that's kind of the distinction there.
Yeah.
Which Final Fantasy also was really close to winning Best Combat. Like, it was Armored Core in Final Fantasy, and I was in the Final Fantasy camp. As much as I do like Armored Core, but I was like, it almost had 4 wars in Final Fantasy.
It was one where I, like, when we were talking about Best Combat, I was like, if someone activated me, I could Final Fantasy 16 my way in there. But I was like, you know what? Like, Armored Core 6 is a great game, and I know Blake's like especially passionate about its combat specifically.
Yeah, Blake was very passionate about that.
This one's good. And to your point, like Spider-Man 2's action, I think if we had to write about it, which we didn't because we gave it like a badge because it's in our top 10, we probably would have talked about the set pieces and like how it all works together. Whereas Blake's entry
and
for Best
swinging,
Combat,
those are all elements of the larger piece. Yeah.
And Blake's Best Combat entry I really like because he's talking specifically about like fine-tuning your machine to do this and then going back to the workshop and like fixing this and that, and it's pretty clear, like, to me, like, Best Combat versus Best Action.
Best mobile game, Warcraft Rumble, which was one Alex and I think Charles might have enjoyed quite a bit. I don't remember who else was on staff that
I played a good bit of it too.
Okay, maybe it was you. Best developer, Nintendo, because they had a great year in terms of like individual releases they gave out. And then publisher, we went Capcom, because the big thing for us, I think, was like Resident Evil 4 was like this amazing sort of re-examination of that game, and Street Fighter 6 was this great recovery story of like after coming back from Street Fighter 5. And then we also were like impressed by weirdo games like Exoprimal. It's like Capcom was really trying some different stuff this year.
That was our spot for Marcus wrote that one, and like he reviewed Exoprimal for us, and that was like our way to let someone, probably the most passionate person about it on staff, Marcus, write about Exoprimal, because you mentioned it in the write-up.
It's kind of like it's almost incredible that Capcom is maintaining this role that they have been on for like years now. Like, I'd say this renaissance for them started with Resident Evil 7, which is 2017. So like for them to still be like hitting a lot more than they're missing right now is like, and especially with something like Exoprimal, which could have easily crashed and burned, and for it to be as fun as it wound up being, it was like, okay, the role continues. So, they cannot do wrong, it seems, right now.
Some other that we talked about a little bit already. Best moment, was from Alan Wake 2. The best boss was the Bahamut fight. Ganondorf was our best villain. And then
let's talk about that real quick, like
sure.
Heroes and villains.
Well, yeah, because I was going to say
exactly.
our best hero went to Clive Rossfield, which I wanted to hear. This was one of those categories that I didn't have a lot of horses in the race. So I'd love to hear you guys sort of discuss the hero specifically.
Yeah, because I feel like hero could also be translated to best protagonists in the event that the hero quote unquote isn't heroic. But I guess, or like maybe the best just lead in the game. And we had like I think the competition was harder maybe on the villain side than or maybe it was harder because maybe there weren't as many stronger villain possibilities as there were heroes. But I think Clive was one that, at least in my head, was kind of like the easy pick throughout the year. As I was thinking in my head of like good character, I was like, no, I think he's going to be pretty hard to top. And I'm trying to think of who else we considered for that.
I don't remember.
I think Saga Rush,
Anderson was maybe
Saga.
consideration.
Saga. Baldur's Gate. Did we have?
Probably. Yeah, I don't remember.
It was like a Shadowheart maybe, or Asterion, or some of the other.
I'm sure that they.
I think Shadowheart for sure. Gale was there, I believe. I'm trying to. Alex put like 3 Baldur's Gate character. I think Gale
Peter
and
Parker
and
Miles Morales.
Miles was a big one. Miles almost made it, I think. Yeah.
I think we went against Miles because we were like, well, he was always great. Like he just remains great, but we liked him. So I think he won that in 2020 when Miles Morales the game came out, like pretty handedly from what I remember.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like they didn't drop the ball with him is basically what you can say. So and I think Clive was more impressive because I think going into Final Fantasy 16, like with all the marketing, I think we all thought or were worried that is he just going to be like another brooding guy? Like, is he going to just be like a Cloud of like, oh, he's just sad, dark-haired,
gruff
emo
dude
guy? Yeah, terrible past. And he's so much more than that in ways where like I think I said this in our discussion of like he is like such a good leader where like if he was real, I would be inspired to be around this guy because he just cares so much about everyone around him in a very real way and not like in a
like he would pull you aside to tell you why Lies of P didn't make the top 10, right?
Yes, he would. In the hideaway. Wesley, you want to join me in the office here?
I'm sorry we couldn't get Lies of P on. That's my terrible Clive.
And he's also like voiced really well. Like the actor Ben Starr, to his credit, I mean, it's fun being in 2023 because like Final Fantasy protagonists don't get to be what they get to be now. Like Ben Starr was like a Twitter hero of the year in his own way too. Like posting videos of like him trying out to be Mario's new voice actor with Clive's voice.
Yeah, that was funny.
Like he's a very charismatic guy, and it's fun living in this.
He's literally
age
glowing
where, like,
now.
Yeah, he's the meme from
he's
the
ascended.
Game Awards.
Yeah, that's right.
He's a god.
And it's cool seeing like it's kind of like in a good way. I remember not in a good way, but like when social media blew up and now we have presidential races and we see presidents tweet and they talk about things online. That has not gone so well. But on the voice actor side, it's great that we like the Clive voice actor is also like Ben Starr is a character on Twitter in itself, and it's fun to like see him push Clive into our heads more beyond just the game.
Yeah, like he's proud of his work and it shows, you know.
Yeah. I honestly think like a nostalgia side, I'm a huge Final Fantasy fan. I've played and beaten almost all of them. Clive might well be the best protagonist of any game. Like just characterization, just the depth, the performance, like he feels like the most real human being they've ever made. And it's like, I think I like him a lot. Like I just genuinely like him as a person. So
and it's so funny because his design is so like I remember like when it first came out that's the protagonist of Final Fantasy 16, like the leather, the edgelord, the Devil May Cry look, like we all were like, okay, we know exactly where this protagonist is going to go. And then you play the game and you're like, oh, what a touching young man. This is great.
What a warm person he is.
Yeah.
Best dork is like a long time Game Informer tradition. You know, like we used to have the room in the magazine to do like a top 10 list for these kind of categories, and top 10 dorks was always like so contentious and fun for us. Because I love it that you could approach it as either like the character you hated the most this year, or the one that you just like love despite them being an idiot. You know, like we landed on Chai from Hi-Fi Rush. I think I think I was pushing for Addison from Tears of the Kingdom, if I remember correctly.
I had marked him down.
Okay,
I put him on the ballot of like he was probably like number 2 for me.
Yeah, and if you don't remember from Tears of the Kingdom, Addison is the guy that you keep running into who can't figure out how to construct a sign, and you have to help him prop up a sign every time. But I think Chai is a good pick. I haven't finished Hi-Fi Rush. I'm not as like close to that game as others, but Chai is like he's just a stupid idiot that you can't help but love. I mean, it's sort of the pitch for him, right?
It's funny because like even at the time that I've been a GI, every year I feel like we've gone back and forth of like this is an endearing award or this is an indictment.
It can be both. Yeah.
Our
2021 was the indictment one. That was.
Who was it?
I think we made it every rider in Riders Republic or
That's
something
right.
like that.
That's good. That's a good.
Which was like not. It does not mean the same thing that Chai being best dork means.
Well, I saw
Chai.
one of my favorite best dorks, which I don't know if it was. I think it was number 1 because, like I said, it was back when we had room to do all 10. Is we did in Tearaway on Vita. It would use the Vita's camera to make you the face of the sun in the game, and so we put like you in Tearaway, which I love so much. One year there's a photo of me playing Beat Saber VR. As like a best dork, which I like. I like how flexible that category can be,
Yeah.
Yeah, because we had last year, was it Stranger of Paradise guy, Jack?
I think so.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
I got to write
like
that entry, and it was the best.
I feel like, was that a mix of an indictment but also an endearing?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, because Ichiban from Like a Dragon won in 2020 for like the good reason of like he's a lovable dork. We can't get enough of this guy.
He could have been best hero and best dork, and I don't think everyone would have been like, yeah, no, you did it.
Yeah,
you
I think
it.
honestly, from what I remember, I think we gave him best dork because it was like him and Miles were like 1 and 2 for best hero, and we didn't want to like not have we wanted to have our cake and eat it too, basically.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Again, it's our list. We can do what we want.
That's right. Congrats to Chai. A couple other best sports went to MLB this year, which Brian liked a lot. But VR Skater was in real contention for a while. It was just like kind of a unique pick that we liked, that Blake in particular liked.
It's in his top 10, I think, right?
I think so.
Or was it an editor's pick? It was one or the other. But
yeah. Which the discussion kind of came down to like. We were all like happy with either, right? Like no one was like really upset about the direction it went, but we just MLB had some good historical sort of facing modes this year that we wanted to highlight. Which is
I also said for my fellow wrestling fans, I did say WWE 2K23 as I usually do. I'm like, hey, it was pretty good this year.
Yeah.
And then I immediately sat back down because I knew that wasn't going to go anywhere.
Thank you for listening to me. Well, I'll yield the rest of my time. Best platforming, Mario Brothers Wonder. That one was kind of a shoo-in. That one wasn't much of a debate. Best cooperative, Baldur's Gate 3. Another one that we were just kind of like quick to give that award. Like I don't. It wasn't like a lot of co-op experiences we really adored.
I think the only other one that we even talked about was Diablo 4, but we all kind of agreed that we didn't really engage with Diablo 4 cooperatively as much as Baldur's Gate 3, whereas some people had played Baldur's Gate 3 with friends or just like it has couch co-op. Like it's a very cool experience.
Best family, Mario Brothers Wonder. Best racing, Forza Motorsport. Best horror, Alan Wake 2. Please stop me if you guys have stuff to add to these.
Well, horror is an interesting one too.
Yeah,
that was a discussion of what that means exactly, because I think the other two sort of like contenders were Resident Evil 4 and
Dead Space.
Dead Space, and then Dredge as sort of a dark horse pick. And then I remember we had a whole discussion about what do you mean? Like, are we saying like scariest game? Like this is the scariest game of the year? Or is it the best video game that is in the horror genre, which doesn't necessarily mean it's the scary. It's everything, right? Like it's just a good playing video game that is a horror game. And I think like Dredge got knocked out pretty quick, which I expected, but I was like, well, it's an honor to be nominated. Dead Space, I think we were like, well, it's a really good remake, but it is pretty much a straight just remake of that game. And like if we want a good remake, Resident Evil 4 is the better of the two. And then I think, again, the reason we had to define what that meant, because we're like, Resident Evil 4, more of an action game. Like, it's got scary stuff, and I think, at least I will say, I think when a game wants to be scary, it is scary. Like, I still, and this was true of the original too, but like the regenerator stuff, I think is terrifying.
Yeah,
it scared me back then. It scared me, now with the new one. So
it's scaring you in this moment as you think back to it.
When they slither on the ground and do that weird thing with their bodies and jump it, it's
not great.
But I think Alan Wake, we were like, well, it's scarier than 4. At least I think most of us agreed that.
I think so.
But then, as a game, we're like, I think it does more interesting things with its horror, and I think that's what it comes to do, like how it leverages its horror in like a unique way, and in the ways that we talked about with Alan Wake, of like it does some really creative and like wacky things, while also maintaining that sense of like dread and like tension. So that's what won it out over Resident Evil 4, which again is more or less kind of an action game.
Yeah.
So,
let's see, best shooter, Battle Bit Remastered, which is kind of an interesting pick. Yeah.
That was a weird one too, where it made everyone realize like there weren't really a lot of big marquee shooters this year. Like, Call of Duty crapped the bed more or less. And then like outside of that, what other big shooters were there? That was a weirdly underrepresented genre this year.
And Alex is kind of like our who wrote the entry for this is like our go-to shooter person on staff. So like he plays probably more shooters than anyone every year.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like we start the conversation
review right now, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like we start the conversation with Alex, like, hey, what do you think? And then, we're all like, okay, well, none of us really played too many shooters this year. I think,
or there weren't really many to play to begin with.
Yeah.
That weren't like ongoing games,
We've talked about it a little bit already. I think it makes. I don't think it's particularly surprising, but best original score, Final Fantasy 16. We really love the soundtrack for that game.
I do just want to sing more praise of that soundtrack because it is so good. And interviewing Soken, like in Japan when I went for our cover story, was like one of the coolest things I got to do, because I feel like video game music just in general is not talked about as much from like a press side of things, which people aren't reading as much about music, so it is what it is. But it was cool that Square Enix like made sure to put aside some time for Soken to like meet me in his studio where he mixes the soundtrack, and like we talked for hours about it, because I play music, I'm fascinated by video game music, and he's like a legend. Not to mention he made this score while going through cancer, which is pretty wild, and he kind of did it secretly.
A whole other level to that,
Yeah, I remember when he like revealed to the world that he had cancer and stuff, and it was this big moment because people didn't know, and he was still cranking out tunes for this game that we didn't know about, and then also Final Fantasy XIV. I think like even if you're not going to play 16, you owe it to yourself to go listen to some of the tracks from that game.
Yeah, that Icon boss music is so good. It's so good. You just can't. You feel like you want to run through a wall.
Yeah,
that chorus kick in.
Let's see. Best simulation. We went Terra Nil. I think Cities Skylines 2 is another one that was sort of up against that. Like those were sort of the two.
Yeah.
But I think
honestly, Cities kind of stepped on its own like rake.
Yeah.
Like, they kind of snatched the victory from the jaws, or they snatched defeat from the jaws of victory, I should say, because of how rough it launched.
Yeah, and then internally, I think just more of us were into Terra Nil, just generally speaking. Best fighting game and competitive game, Street Fighter VI. We've already talked quite a bit about Street Fighter VI.
Best puzzle game might be one to talk about, because we talked.
I was
about
actually going to save that one for last. Actually, is
okay,
what I was sort of looping around, because the best expansion DLC was the Phantom Liberty expansion, which is kind of like that was an easy one.
But in a year of really good expansions, though.
Yeah, and I don't know where I would have landed on it. I'm glad I didn't have to have this discussion because Ragnarok's Valhalla came out so late. But man,
I'm playing that right now. Yeah,
for free. And it's a good roguelite, like it's good. But Phantom Liberty, I mean, it is basically a game, and it was just so good to return to 2077 and have that send off. It's fantastic.
I think that award was more prestigious than it sometimes is, because like Separate Ways came out and that was really good. Even like the Burning Shores DLC for Horizon Forbidden West, which I reviewed, was good too.
Yeah.
And then like, you know, God of War obviously, and then even the Final Fantasy 16 DLC that dropped also like the night that it was announced, which I haven't played yet. I haven't gotten to it yet, so I don't know if it's good or not. But it was kind of like, oh my god, like two big DLC just kind of at the like 9th hour just here. But to echo God of War, because I'm also still making my way through it, I'm like, man, I almost wish this had come out, because I would actually love to have this discussion of like, would Cyberpunk have run away from it, because this is really good.
Yeah, I mean, hey, we could talk about it next year. You know, I mean,
and speaking of next year, like, if you're reading our new issue that's hitting mailboxes soon or now or digitally, we talk about, or no, wait. We'll have to cut this part. My bad. I'm talking about the next issue, and I didn't realize it. I was talking about
we
most
don't need to cut
anticipated.
it, Wes. It's a nice little tease for a feature that'll be in the next issue. Maybe you'll read about some of the best expansions.
We have some words about some good expansions.
Yeah.
2024 is shaping up to be a year of good expansions and DLC.
Yeah, it's funny because I was just I thought that would be a quick discussion, but I forgot all the good expansions that had come out. But I do think Phantom Liberty, just like for so many reasons of just like the way it had people sort of reappraise Cyberpunk, with it working much closer to what it should have always been, you know, is worth discussing. But then, yeah, the last one that I have here is Puzzle Game, which was one that was kind of tough for us because we really liked Humanity a lot. And then Talos Principle was kind of this late addition that, Marcus, you really liked. Yeah, and we ended up landing on Talos Principle, but, like, I mean, shout out to Humanity is like a close second, you know?
That was another one like the Lies of P Street Fighter debate where we had to take a recess to like, all right, people go play both or play the one that you haven't played enough of so we can come back to this, because we don't want to make a call right now, because at that point I was the only one that had played Talos Principles. My review had gone up relatively recently. It's
a surprisingly big game. Like it's one of those intimidating games to jump into.
Yes.
Yeah. I did go back. I did late. We talked about it a couple podcast episodes ago, but I do like what I played of Talos Principle quite a bit. And Humanity, as much as I really liked it, and it was just like I love the visuals of that game. It's so weird and crazy looking. I did sort of get bogged down with the sort of programming of it all. Of like, it can get a little, or rather, let me rephrase it and say it got a little tedious for me at times, rather than sort of use it as a blanket expression for the whole game. But
yeah, that's kind of where I got with it too. And I'm going to shout out, because this was like, I think initially when we had the Google Doc for these categories, I actually added the puzzle category because it wasn't there. Because I think last year there just wasn't enough good stuff where it's like, okay, if there's not enough representatives for a category, then let's just cut it. Because why just give something by default? But this was one year was like, wait, we actually have like a lot of really good puzzle games. This is a discussion. It's like Cocoon came out, and I think Cocoon is really good. And
some would
like
say it should have won.
So, I mean, some might say
I do like Cocoon more than those two games myself.
And like Viewfinder and I mentioned Ridmos before. Like, this was a low-key strong year for puzzle games.
Yeah, absolutely. What else do you guys want to cover? Because that covers all our category winners. I mean, we could move on to questions, or I don't know. Is there any other sort of thoughts that you guys want to bring to our end of the year discussions?
Let me tell you guys about this game called Lies of P. Okay, so
go to the timestamp. I don't know what timestamp was.
Yeah, have you heard the good word? Yeah, Lies of P.
Join the peers. We're always welcoming new people into our community of P.
We had some categories that like I think were interesting that we thought about of like best expansion. By the way, Dead Cells: Return to Castlevania, another really good expansion.
Ooh,
But like categories that we didn't end up running with is like level design and mission design, which have been there in the past. Roguelite.
Remember my maybe dumb idea where I was like, what if we did a category for like best like headquarters or like best like group? Because I was like, I wanted a way to highlight stuff like, and I mentioned this last episode, like, you know how great the cantina is in Jedi Survivor, And it's like, there's been a few games where like you have like a home base that you keep returning to, and there's this cast of characters that you interact with, and they change throughout the story. Because Final Fantasy XVI's Hideaway, I really like too. Like I like everyone in there and seeing what's up with them. And I was like, there's quite a few games that have like a version of that this year.
Yeah.
Like Zelda has whatever the main camp is that you keep going back to where everyone hangs out. I forget the name of the city.
Yeah.
Baldur's Gate, your literal camp that you go chill with your party members. I was like, and we were just kind of stuck on what you call that. Like, what is the definition? Because it's like, it's not
group
best party,
chill spot.
Like best supporting cast, but
third
then that's like
area. Is that, you guys know that what people have been talking about lately? The third, like how the third, I forget what the third location doesn't exist in our modern society, because like you have home, you have work, and then in the past there was a place you could go to not be at either of those places for free. But
the cafes, the parks,
right?
Like a bar,
like those don't exist anymore because they all cost money now.
They exist outside of America. Apparently, that's what I've discovered on TikTok.
Yeah, I mean, they do exist. You can seek them out, but they're just not as like integral into American society, and it's
right. You don't have like an after-school club.
Yeah, there's no place for kids to go for free.
I was just on vacation in Italy, and like we got coffee and espresso or cafe so much there, because you go and you can get a pastry and 2 shots of espresso, and it's like $2. And I've seen a lot of TikToks talking about the death of third places in America, because to go to a coffee shop to get 2 shots of espresso and a pastry, you're going to spend $10, $12. And yeah, it's easier to just be like, you know what? I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to go home and not spend $12. Yeah. And we have lost.
And video games let us live out the fantasy of having somewhere to go other than work at home.
Kyle, why didn't you say this when we were discussing this?
Because I'm only thinking about it now.
Like this whole category fell apart because we just didn't know how to define it. So So I guess next year we'll call it the best third place in video games,
which is still confusing and not immediately understandable as well. I also like that last year we had best open world Pokemon game as a category, but we couldn't have one this year.
Wait till Power Roll comes out.
Yeah, we considered having best remaster. We had best remake, but we were like, maybe Metroid Prime remastered is best remaster, best indie. I throwback RPG. I felt like there were so many of those this year. I was like, maybe that could be an award. I also threw out best dual protagonist, because Alan Wake 2 and Spider-Man 2 and Sea of Stars are all games where you play as 2 characters in a single player game.
Technically Bayonetta 2. You control 2 characters simultaneously.
Exactly. Best we had. Here's what I wrote down, which is like clear that we just weren't sure what to do with it. But best group, party ? Hub ? Gathering place ?
Yeah. Well, that's what we just talked about, right?
That's what I'm saying. I had the options that we had here. So,
people, writers, let us know what you would call this. I would love to know what the community like.
There's something there. Yeah.
Drop, like maybe we can do this next year. So if you're in the Discord or if you want to send us an email, I would love to know what you would call best headquarters ? Best cantina style place.
Best place where everybody knows your name.
That should have been
with a little piano in the background.
There you go.
What you guys think? Any final thoughts? We move on to some questions.
I think we nailed it this year, and anyone who doesn't like our list is wrong.
Hell yeah! There you go.
What a great note to end on. Well, thank you, Kyle, for helping us run down our 2023 GOTY picks. Hope you guys found that not only entertaining, but insightful. I say that because I hope you will stop yelling at us for not picking the things that you wanted us to pick.
Yeah, sorry.
Or put them in the right order, or the order that you think is right. Who knows? But I mean, that's the beauty of lists, right? They're meant to be disagreed with, and I just hope you have a better understanding as how we, as a staff, we come and together to make our decisions. So let us know what you think. Like, again, shoot us an email. What you can do, just by messaging us in a way that I'm about to explain now through Housekeeping. Hey, yeah, Housekeeping.
Perfect
Whoa!
transition. Nailed it.
I know, I nailed it. It's time to pick up the clothes that are on the ground because we're cleaning up house. Did you know that you can buy single issues of Game Informer magazine right now at GameStop? And did you also know that they only cost $7.99 for what, like 80 plus pages of well-written video game features and interviews, as well as reviews and previews? I don't know if you saw, but our newest cover story is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, with possibly and literally the hottest cover that we've ever made. Like, it is literally Sephiroth on fire, surrounded by fire, and then you turn it around and there's more fire, but Cloud's there, and he's in the fire. It looks great.
It's a great looking cover. Yeah,
it is legit one of my favorite covers that we've ever done. It just looks super sick. It almost makes me wish it was just the box art of the game was just that. So you can check that out. Single issues of that should be available in the coming weeks. But you can subscribe and read the digital version of it now. Otherwise, it should be hitting mailboxes soon. Or like I said, if you want to support the website and us, pick up a single issue at GameStop. We've got all the back issues from throughout the year there that you can pick up, and it helps us a lot. So thank you so much for that. You can follow us on social media all over the place. We are on Blue Sky, Twitter, Facebook, Threads, TikTok, Instagram. Where aren't we, Kyle? Is there even such a thing?
Hive. I think we have a Hive account that I haven't updated in a long time. Sorry, Hive.
I don't even know what that is. So that's news to me.
That's why I haven't really put any updates over there.
So yeah, for the 3 people on Hive wondering where's Game Informer,
sorry,
we're there. And you can follow us individually. I am at Twitter at Marcus Stewart 7, as well as Blue Sky. Wesley, where can the folks find you online?
Twitter is at LeBlanc Wes. Everywhere else is just Wesley LeBlanc. Admittedly, I'm pretty bad at using Blue Sky and Threads just because they're new and I forget about them.
Same.
But yeah, Twitter and Instagram are where I'm most active.
Yeah. Kyle, how about you?
Kyle Hillier on Twitter, Kyle Hillier on Blue Sky. I'm like 10% spicier on Blue Sky.
Really?
I will occasionally put a post there that is maybe a little bit of a hotter take than I would put on Twitter.
You're a lot more problematic on Blue Sky.
That's right.
Than on Twitter.
Yeah. Follow me there.
Of course, you can follow us on our Twitch channel as well, twitch.tv/Game Informer for all of our weekly streams. At the time that you're listening to this, we will be away, but we will be back with our new super replay of The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. I'm going to be playing that game in its entirety for the first time ever as a big Zelda fan. That's the biggest Zelda game I've never played is Majora's Masking.
Which version?
The OG one. We're going to be playing the N64 one.
Probably
Nice.
via Switch, I think, right? Is the plan?
Via Switch,
Yeah.
We're not going that far back.
Yeah. Well, you don't happen to have one of those N64 controllers, do you?
No, I was just going to use the
Okay.
Pro controller. That's a good idea, right?
It'll get the job done. But look, these are all topics we'll cover while we're playing Majora's Mask on Super Replay. But
I just don't want the carpal tunnel that comes with holding an N64 controller. So
you might be more carpal tunnel-y with the Switch. I don't know.
So-
Maybe.
Well, I guess I'll have to tune in to find out.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah.
So I think that'll kick off. Did we have a date, January 5th? Is that-
because this 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I believe it's the 5th. Yeah.
Yeah.
January
5th,
5th.
Friday, January
Yes.
5th.
Yeah.
On our Twitch channel, going every week until we beat the game. And of course, if you subscribe to our Twitch channel just one time, you get access to our Game Informer Discord channel where a lot of our lovely community members reside, as well as the editors. And it's also a great way to ask us questions for the Game Informer show. We have a GI Show Discord channel. I usually go in there every week and post a call for listener questions, which is how you, the listener/viewer, can influence the show by getting to communicate with us directly. But if you're not in the Discord, you can also email us questions at podcast@gameinformer.com. Be sure to also check out our other podcasts, All Things Nintendo with Brian Shea every Friday. And of course, an extra super duper special shout out to Matt Storm, aka DJ Stormageddon, who is our awesome podcast editor. And, special shout out to him. Now that we're at the end of the year, has done a great job getting this podcast put together and making us all sound better than we really do.
Yes.
Over the last year plus now. So thanks so much, Matt, for everything that you've done. And of course, check out their podcast, Fun and Games, as well as Reignite, which is a BioWare-focused podcast. And yeah, as I mentioned, we've got a few listener questions this week, starting with Mash Start Button. Actually, Mash Start Button on Discord, as well as Who Can, because they both basically ask the same question, so I'm going to, credit you both, where they ask, what's your favorite gaming-related holiday memory? I remember knocking over the tree in excitement when I got a Nintendo 64 addressed to me with none of my siblings' name on it, which was specifically Mash Start Button's memory, just to not assign their memory to Who Can.
Yeah.
But yeah, favorite holiday memories. Kyle, you got one that comes to mind? Gaming related?
Oh yeah, I mean, I my first console that I owned was the Super Nintendo, and that was like the biggest Christmas of my life. Opening up that
Did you
Super
scream?
Nintendo. Gosh, I don't know if I don't think so.
Were you a Nintendo 64 kid?
No, I mean, I remember I bought the N64 with like holiday money, and me and my brother like split it. So it was like this sort of academic, very like economic, like we got to make decisions.
Business
here.
transaction.
We put on our ties and did the math. But the Super Nintendo was huge for us. I mean, we had been begging our parents for a video game console for years, and they finally acquiesced. And it was a Super Nintendo with Donkey Kong Country in the box. A box of which my brother still has to this day, like the console box with the green leaves all over it and stuff like that. So that was an important one for sure.
Okay. What about you, Wes?
I think I've shared this before here, or maybe somewhere, but because it's always my go-to story. But whatever year it was, when the 360 came out, I had been playing Xbox at my friend's all the time because we didn't have one. My older brother had a PlayStation, and that was all we had. Playing a lot of Halo 2 on Xbox, fell in love with it, was begging my parents to get me. I didn't even want the 360. I just wanted like an Xbox with Halo 2. And for Christmas, they surprised me with a 360 and Halo 3, I think. Was that a launch title?
No, it wasn't launch, but it was.
Just a couple years
okay,
later.
then.
Yeah.
Okay, then it was probably a 360 with Halo 2 on it and SSX, which was great, but not as great as Tricky on PS2. But that was like the most hype thing ever. I was like probably definitely crying, knowing me, and like freaking out because I just wanted an Xbox. I was trying to be to get what I wanted. I was like, look, you don't even have to get the more expensive one. Like I just want the cheaper one. I just want to play Halo 2.
Yeah.
And then they surprised me with the 360, and it was like the best Christmas present ever. I immediately had to go plug it in. That was my day.
That's cool.
And then you have to figure out how to connect it to the internet and download.
I had never even played Xbox Live, and at the time my parents didn't know what it was, and they didn't let me play either. So it was just local co-op and like the campaign. That was back when there was either LAN or you could buy that very expensive thing,
right.
the Wi-Fi, and they were not. They didn't like the idea of me playing online, I guess, because I was younger, probably, and
fair.
They did not want to spend the money on the Wi-Fi thing, and I didn't have a LAN port in my room, so I was happy in co-op land. Which, to its credit, Halo 2, or not co-op, split screen is pretty dang good.
Yeah. You mentioned crying. Can you simulate what Wesley crying sounds like? Because you're always so calm and collected that I'm struggling to even an excited happy cry. What does that
That's just
sound like?
That's funny because I guess that's probably just when I'm working. I try to keep it calm and collected because otherwise all my friends, my family, they all know me as the person that cries a lot. I get very emotional.
Oh, really?
If I'm happy, I'm crying. If I'm sad, I'm crying. Back then, it probably would have been full open mouth crying out of excitement. Nowadays, I've kind of moved into the
a good ugly cry.
Those happen usually when I'm sad, but now I've moved into this is such a great moment. I'm trying to capture it in my memory. My eyes are tearing up with water. I might have a tear flow down out of happiness. Very, very commercial but I've always been I don't know, if a commercial comes on and it's meant to make you cry, I am the audience. I am the one that cries at the commercial. I just have always been, I'm an easy target.
Have you seen, speaking of
those.
commercials that get you emotional, have you seen that? I don't even know what the product's for, but it's the old ladies that go sledding, and it's got like a piano cover of My Life by the Beatles. It's like these old ladies sitting on a bench and are watching kids sled, and the idea is like, you know, they're like, oh, we're too old for this. But then the one lady, I think it's an Amazon commercial, because she like goes in an app, is like, I'm going to order some sleds. And they get sledding, and they just go down the hill together, and their faces just light up. And this beautiful, and I love My Life. Like, it's such a great Beatles song. And it's just like this soft piano cover of it. Or like every time I see that commercial, I get emotional.
Yeah. I'll have to check it out. I'm sure it will make me cry.
After becoming, not to get too sentimental here, but like, yeah, definitely after becoming a dad, like there were a lot of commercials that just like cut to my core of like,
Yeah.
you know, this backup software to keep all the pictures that you take of your newborn baby. I'm like, take my money. I can't lose those pictures. Or like one of like a Google chat commercial about a dad whose daughter went to college, and that's how they stayed in touch. I was like, just destroyed me. I was like, what the hell, body? Come on.
That'll be a list, top 10 most emotional commercials.
Game that made us cry the most would actually be a pretty good. Well, I don't know. Maybe no one else on staff cries as much. But I
No,
cry.
I've got a
eyes.
few.
I already
I've got
know
a
my
few.
answer.
Yeah.
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 I guess my answer
Before
to this
your
question
eyes.
is, don't Static knows, Alex Static. We both had a good cry separately with that
God,
game.
that one killed me. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. But I guess my answer for this question is I'll never forget Christmas 2002, I want to say. My brother and my uncle, who was the cool uncle. Like, I feel like everyone has a cool uncle, right? Who always like comes in clutch with like gifts that your parents either won't or can't get you.
Yeah.
Because they got like more money and they're more like, they just got you, right? And this cool uncle was the one that got me my PS1 when that came out.
Nice.
But then
Dang, that's a really cool uncle.
Yeah.
yeah. But then he upped the ante with the PS2 when that was still pretty new, where he got not only one, but two PS2s for me and my younger brother, which was the first time I'd ever gotten a console to myself.
Is your
like
uncle Bill Gates? Like,
I'll never forget that Christmas, because from the NES to the PlayStation 1, I always had to share a console with my younger brother. That's just how it was. But then, you know, shout out to Uncle Jerry. He was clutch that year where he gave us two boxes.
Jerry
like,
Seinfeld? I'm trying to figure out who your uncle is who's so freaking rich.
Was
Jerry
he a
the
dink?
Mouse?
Was he married and had no kids? Is he a dual income, no kids? Dink?
No, he
Dingle.
was
Yeah.
single income, no kids, single. I guess.
I think the no kids is the important part when it comes
Yeah,
to
that's how you save
money.
money.
I've heard kids can be expensive.
Sorry, I feel like sorry, Marcus. We are focusing on the wrong part of this story, but we are just enamored with
money
an
does your
uncle that
uncle
could
make?
buy their nephews
We'd
two
like to meet your
PlayStation
uncle.
2s.
Can he be my uncle too? But yeah, he gave us like two similarly sized boxes, and we're like, oh, I guess we got the same thing. And you just see that PlayStation 2 logo, and then realize like, wait, he has one too. Like, this is mine. Oh my god! And you know, we had separate rooms at this point, of course. So I was like, I can go in here and just ignore him. Like, he can play all his dumb games.
I can play
stuff
the
that I like.
bouncer to my heart's content.
Yeah.
That's what I said. I said, have you heard of the bouncer, Uncle Jerry? So
Do you remember the first game on it?
It might have been the very first. It was one of the first. Was Sly Cooper, the first one.
Ooh,
Oh,
yeah,
that's a good one.
Yeah, it's good as he might have gotten that too. Actually, I think he might have
Slaps.
actually.
Yeah, I need to meet
yeah.
this uncle.
He sounds
I
pretty
need a new
cool.
uncle.
He helped me set up this is when we got the PlayStation 1. He helped us set it up too, because we were still like probably like 9 when we got the PS1. And, you know, we're spending a lot of time with my uncle, but he was the one that put the fear of God of me in terms of like dealing with CDs. Because, you know, the PS1 was my first disc-based console. And honestly, that was the reason I chose it over the N64. Like, growing up a Nintendo kid with the NES and Super NES, and then I had to choose between the PS1 and the N64. And I chose the PS1 purely because it used disc, and in my like young mind, that was like super futuristic. So
Oh,
it's like,
sure.
I gotta have the wild future machine. Thank God it worked out, and I did. The PS1 was as good as it was, and I didn't choose the 3DO has disc. Get me that thing.
I know, right? Give me that Philips CDI.
But I'll never forget the night I got it, and he's showing us how to set it up, and he takes the first day. I don't remember what the first game we had, but he's like, hey, listen, you got to be careful when you handle these discs, and he's showing us the data side, and he's like, if you touch this, it will ruin the game. He gave the impression that even just breathing on that side wrong would completely destroy the game. So for the first 3 years of having the PS1, I was so paranoid and careful about how I took games out of the jewel case and put it in. And when I had friends come over, I was overly anal about how they put the game in. And then I would watch them at their house do it, and they're just kind of shoving in there, And I'm like, what are you doing? And anytime I accidentally dropped the disc and it fell data side on the carpet, I would freak out. I ruined it. I can't play Metal Gear Solid anymore. And it took me a long time before I realized it was fine.
Yeah, but that's probably the right call to sort of trick a kid into being overzealous,
Probably, yeah. So lie to your kids, basically the moral of that story.
Yeah,
put the fear of God in them. Let's see. Our next question comes from Mike J. Lunt via Discord, asking, "What game or games are you most looking forward to in 2024?" Let's restrict this to one game.
One game,
because we might have a whole podcast doing a sort of 2024 look ahead.
Yeah, that's probably coming up soon.
Mine is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Remake was my 2020 game of the year. I love Final Fantasy. I love Final Fantasy VII. Rebirth looks great. I'm watching all my coworkers go and play it and have a great time. Not jealous at all. I can't wait to play that game. The more I read about it, which I get to read a lot about it because we have an awesome cover story on it and lots of great articles online about it, the more I'm excited to play it. And it's in the first 2 months of 2024. What a great way to kick off the year. I'm so stoked.
Yeah. Kyle, do you need a minute to think about this?
No, there's two, but I'm going to pick one as the assignment requested. I'm going Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown. Yeah, I got to play 3 hours of it recently and was frankly upset that I had to stop. So that's the one I think I'm most excited for 2024 so far. And that's early. That's by the time you're listening to this episode, I think it will be out in 2 weeks or something like that. So that's part of the excitement, is I know it's close, Yeah.
I think I'm gonna, based on the games that we know now that are announced, I think Final Fantasy is also mine. I've loved Final Fantasy VII, the original, loved the remake, loved what I played of Rebirth so far, and just the scope of it, and just most of all, just what they're going to do with that story. Just seeing Zack hanging out it's not a big deal. What are they doing? Where is this going to go? And also just knowing where it ends, I'm super psyched to see how this wraps up and how that goes down. So yeah, I'm going to go Rebirth.
It's one of those games I'm going to try to beat as fast as possible because I know spoilers are going to be everywhere. Whatever the ending is, however it ends, I know God rest souls on Twitter. It's not going to be... People are not going to be nice.
Yeah, do that thing where you don't let tweets with the words Final Fantasy VII, enter your Twitter sphere. Yeah.
I didn't plan this, but it's great that we're talking about this game because Chock Full of via Discord asked, "I'm finally playing through Final Fantasy VII Remake, and I'm loving how this feels so new while still reawakening memories of when I played through the original. Which classic game would you like to get a remake similar to the scope of Final Fantasy VII?"
Ooh, similar to the scope.
So not just making it look nice in the way that it was, kind of almost reinventing it entirely.
My go-to with this question is Chrono Trigger, but for that one I want an HD 2D, right? I don't want it to be modernized. You want a faithful, but a full, maybe the original Metal Gear Solid.
So different than what they did with Twin Snakes,
even further than Twin Snakes. Because I quite like Twin Snakes. It's maybe a controversial opinion that I would only put on Blue Sky, but I replayed Twin Snakes in the last couple of years, and I still really love it as sort of a reexamination of the original Metal Gear Solid. But yeah, that's tough.
My mind immediately jumped to Kingdom Hearts 2, probably, because I like that more than 1. Sure. But I think my answer is, just because we kind of are getting modern Kingdom Hearts still, I think I want either Johto or Hoenn Pokemon. And I just want it to be the Pokemon game we've all dreamed about since the series began, which is the open world Pokemon game where they're just running around and it doesn't run like garbage. And
that's the key.
The game that we all want Pokemon to become, that it's slowly, inch by inch, getting there.
Yeah.
But like, do it with Johto or Kanto or something.
Like you do Pokemon Gold or Silver, but it's blown up to like the Witcher 3 size.
Oh,
like as much depth as like the Witcher 3 has, but for Pokemon.
I think Game Freak is up to the task. I have full confidence that they can do that.
They can hire CD Projekt Red to make that game for them.
Yeah.
I want to talk to random Lass, and she has like a whole like deep side story that you can engage with. We really get to the heart of what makes Lass tick. So yeah, make that happen. That won't set the Switch on fire. That'd be great.
I have another quick answer because I think about this a lot because I see people like Ben Hansen, former Game Informer editor, MinMax, Mr. MinMax we call him, who just is like loves Final Fantasy VII and is obsessed with Final Fantasy VII. And to hear him talk about every little bit of second of every trailer of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and what that means and et cetera, of like the game that I think I would be that obsessed about in the sense that they remade it, but then also used it as an opportunity to sort of change things, I think would be Ocarina of Time. Like if they released some trailer for like, hey, we're remaking Ocarina of Time, and then they just seeded all these interesting ideas where they were making these radical changes, I think that's the game that I would be like violently obsessed with. Of like, what are they doing? What are they doing here? How are they going to approach this? Yada yada yada. Like, I think that would be the one for me is Ocarina of Time.
Well, Brian spoke to the Tears of the Kingdom team and the producer for Zelda, who I can't remember, and asked about an Ocarina of Time remake, and he said no comment, which I saw on Twitter means that we're getting a remake.
Oh, is that right?
That's what no comment means in 2023. That means you're getting it. So I think your wish is coming true.
I thought we learned that no doesn't mean yes. I thought we got away from that. But.
Not when it comes to video game rumors. Okay. To be clear, I don't need a Ocarina of Time remake. I'm not like I love that game so much. I don't really. It's not one that I like need to see remade, but it is one if they do a bigger remake than what they did for 3DS. I would be like very curious to see in what direction that game would go.
Okay. Here's a wild idea for a remake. Playground Games, maker of Forza Horizon series, give them Twisted Metal. And let them basically do a Horizon-style Twisted Metal game.
Just a big open
that
world.
That would be sick.
Yeah.
Big open world. Maybe even drop like other players in there. But every car has a gun on it, or multiple guns, and you just go around this big world, just blowing things up and doing missions. Like it's just an open world Twisted Metal game, basically.
With the cast of the TV show?
But not live service, hopefully.
Yeah, Anthony Mackie. I like the TV show. So
I know that was not a dig. I know you like it. And they're doing another season, right? They confirmed that?
They are.
Yeah, at the Game Awards.
You should watch it. But once Playground gets done with Fable and reinventing that into whatever it's going to be, let's give them Twisted Metal and also somehow Microsoft buy Twisted Metal.
I was about to say, I'm sure PlayStation would love that idea.
They love giving up IP. That's not they're just really flippant with that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, that's the sad thing, right? It's like that'll never happen because of this, but it's a good idea. Open world Twisted Metal game.
Playground.
How about Gran Turismo Twisted Metal?
Oh, there you go. Gran Turismo Twisted Metal. Does that sound good, Marcus?
I mean, if you want to suck all the fun and personality out of it, I guess you can do that.
Is Playground owned by Microsoft? Yeah.
Yeah, they're one of the.
They're locked in.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So yeah, if you want to see just intricate like stitching on Sweet Tooth's seat, you can give it to Polyphony, I guess. But if you want fun, then give it to Playground.
That's funny.
Last question before we get out of here. Simple one from Judonkadonk in Discord. Which is worse to play, a bad or boring game?
Ooh, boring game.
Boring for sure. Yeah.
No question.
Yeah. What is a boring game? Do you guys have off the top of your head, an example of a boring game?
I find a lot of free-to-play stuff that like intentionally limits what you can do behind microtransactions and stuff. I often find those boring. Like they intentionally make the game sort of boring to encourage you to buy things is how I sort of feel about those often. But yeah, like a recent sort of like premium boring game is kind of the example you're looking for, I guess, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's like I always look at boring games as games that are like that are not offensively bad, but they're not that good. They are so middle of the road that they're so uninteresting that they do nothing all that creative or just like stand out either way.
Yeah.
To where you're just like, this is just the most like I'm going through the motions playing this game because it's so inoffensive that it is so uninteresting.
Yeah.
I'm struggling to think of a full game I'd call boring, but a recent game I played, and I'm sure people will not be happy with this, that gave me vibes often where I'm like, I'm just kind of bored right now, is unfortunately Starfield. There are a lot of parts of that game that I like and I find interesting, but like the main gameplay mechanic, the main loop was just kind of boring to me because it wasn't anything new. It wasn't doing anything interesting with it. And it wasn't until I like kind of broke out of that loop that I was finding what I think Starfield is good at. I still like Starfield a lot, but there were parts where I'm like, man, this is like so boring. It's just boring.
It could be kind of, it got rote kind of quickly of just like sort of,
Yeah.
like I don't know what the solution to this is, by the way, but like well,
they are patching in more fun.
Oh, is that right? Oh, okay. A more pleasant experience, I hope, are the patch notes. That's a Breath of the Wild reference. I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, like the fast travel almost makes it too sort of like quick to move through the game. It's like, oh, I got to fast travel here, fast travel here, fast travel here, but like on the other side of it, it's like, I don't think I want that game to exist without fast travel. You know, like I don't know what that game would. Like I have to get in a ship every time and fly in real time to another planet. I don't know if I don't think I want that either. So I don't know what the solution is.
I feel like big open world games now are the most susceptible to this because there's such a formula to those that if you don't do anything remarkably different, it can get boring real quick. Of like, okay, you're in a big world, there's side quests that are just okay or filler, and there's icons, and you're just going from point A to point B, and the story isn't all that great. Like off the top of my head, even though I didn't play it, it sounded like Days Gone was kind of that for a lot of people that played it. Of like, it's not like a bad game, but it's just kind of boring, or like some modern Ubisoft open world games where it's like, okay,
Assassin's Creed Valhalla, I would say.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
As someone who loves Origins and Odyssey, like I had to guide Valhalla like for work, so that kind of tainted the experience a bit. But like, that's the fatigue that everyone got with Assassin's Creed because we got like 6 or 9 entries of the same formula. I got with Valhalla, and we're only 3 entries into the open world, and it was it's just boring.
To be fair, though, each of those games is like 3 games, right? So
yes,
yeah. So I think maybe, if you make an open world game now, especially in a post Breath of the Wild, post Elden Ring world where it's like the bar has been raised now, it's like, or even if you want to go the other way, for some people, post No Man's Sky in a completely different kind of way. Because I feel like Starfield kind of chases that No Man's Sky vibe a bit, but doesn't hit it at all. So it's like, those games are so easy to be boring now as an open world game that's just not doing anything particularly interesting. So I think with you guys, boring game, I'll take a bad game any day of the week over a boring game.
Especially like with work, like when we have to review a game and you have an embargo and a deadline, like bad is like, okay, well, I want to see how deep this goes. Boring is just like, man, I got to do 20 more hours of this.
Bad might be funny. You know, bad could be like, just, this is hilarious how terrible this is. I can't believe this happened. Like Gollum, I'd rather play than. It's just for like the
novelty. Say Starfield or something?
I had to stop. I was like, am I about to say that I'd rather play Gollum than Starfield? But I mean, for the comedy factor, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe just a little bit. I don't know. I have to look in myself in the mirror and think about that now. But you know what? You can go think about that too, because the show is over, everyone.
That's a hell of a conclusion. I love it.
Yeah. Get the hell out of here. Happy holidays, everyone, or what's left of them. Happy New Year. We're not going to see you again until the new year, I guess. So this is a good send-off for 2023. It's been a great year. Loved working with you guys all this year.
Yeah.
You know.
Likewise.
Yeah.
It's been a good year.
And a good year for us. And I hope you guys all had a great year too. And it's only going to get better going into 2024. So enjoy the rest of your year, everyone. Be safe. Go hug a loved one. Drink some eggnog. Wear a cardigan. Whatever you do.
Put on glasses.
Yeah. Put on some Harry Potter glasses. And we'll see you next year, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.